like this pillowcase pattern makes me look official.
No, it looks like it's a boudoir version. But the thing is, the background of my boudoir is kind of busted, and I don't look sexy. It looks like, it looks like you're ready for. It looks like those Zona Roja kind of vibey.
You guys want to tune in for a few minutes, so well, you don't understand anyway.
That's why you're trying to look. So.
But I was like, are you gonna stay for the whole thing? He's like, no. Then y'all start speaking English, and then I don't know what you said. I'm like, learn English. Easy solution. Are we on?
Pero de verdad, sí, estamos. De verdad, hay clases, hay gente que le gustaría darle clases.
No, hay personas que pueden enseñar inglés en su barrio.
Ah, bueno, entonces es cosa de él. También.
Men.
Sí.
It's because of men.
Sí.
I'm going to do a watch party.
Oh, that's right. So while we're here, let's set that up. So, yes. I'm like, I was going to get into a conversation. Ya hay gente mirándonos, hay 7 personas. If you could tell us where you're listening in from, de donde nos están escuchando, that would be really great. You can put it on the chat.
Yes. Big up yourself.
Big up yourself. Let us know where you are calling in, where you're listening in from, where you're viewing. I always get confused around viewing. I used to do radio before, right? So it's always like listenership.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what viewership. I guess it's viewership. Yeah. Okay, so I need to go to Caña Negra. So host watch parties, Nebraska. In the house. Gloria Kim is in Nebraska. Nice. So Caña Negra, let's do a little watch party.
And then I'm gonna also post on my Twitter. I made my Twitter private now because I can't take it.
No, es que mucha gente jodiendo.
All the time. It was really because of ADOS. I'm like, now you got the ADOS ass clowns all up. No, I'm not dealing with this.
Sí, es que es demasiada, es que sí. It's too much, to be honest. I always get confused about these watch parties because it says share, and then I'm like, so I want to share, but then I don't want.
Yeah, it's like acting janky for
me. And then it's like create a room. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to create a room. I just want to share the damn thing.
But where's Evelyn though? We gotta say her name 3 times like Candyman.
So I have to say it together. I need to give Swahili, which all you all are gonna get to know soon, right? Post Swahili, homegirl Swahili, that is in Harlem. She is also a Black since birth woman from Puerto Rico that is forming an amazing. She already has an organization. After Hurricane Maria, she did a lot of solidarity work for children in. I can't remember the name of her community, but she's gonna type it there. But in Puerto Rico, and she's forming now officially the organization. And I'm supposed to be her mentor, but I have not been a good mentor because I have been stressed out.
Well, yeah,
with life, and she understands, and she has been very, very patient with me. But I need to really catch up with her. So, Swahili, déjanos saber el nombre de tu comunidad en Puerto Rico para que, y el nombre, yo sé que era Proyecto, proyecto. But I know she's changing the name because that's part of the process of the support that we are. Guayama, Puerto Rico. And it's so funny because, when people focus on Puerto Rico and they talk about Black people, they only focus on Loíza, right? Because Black people only...
I'm tired of it. Not to cut them out, right? But to be like, let's talk about Ponce. Let's talk about the various places that we be at. We don't just...
Guayama. We also exist in Guayama.
Where is Guayama?
I don't mean we because I'm not from Puerto Rico, but I'm part of the African diaspora. So when I say we, I mean people that look like me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of
that. Where is Guayama? It's in the south?
¿Cómo?
Is it in the south?
Swahili, ¿dónde está Guayama en relación a la isla? ¿Está en el sur? Is it in the north? Ahora ella lo pone. And these are, part of Caña Negra. These are some of the guests that we could be having on our podcast too, is these projects and these folks like her that are doing this important work. So I am really confused now about how to do these watch parties, because before it was really easy and now it's becoming really hard.
I thought it was me because it used to be just like share.
Yeah, and now
the thing isn't there.
And I'm about
the feds. I knew it. It's the feds. Like, we couldn't get... Your internet was acting up for this live. We couldn't post our event on Eventbrite. It's the feds. It's the mestizos. I know it's them.
All right. Así que Guayama está localizado en el sur centro de Puerto Rico.
I knew it was the south because I had seen it in, in one of my receipt gatherings.
Add to stream.
Come through, Ev.
Hey, I've been here. I've been waiting. I'm patiently waiting for this spot to float on. Let's go.
Genevieve was like, "Oh, I look like something." I'm like, "This is my regular house dress that I again pushed down to make y'all think I did something."
See, it looks good though.
Thank you.
It looks like you did something.
I did. I put my my Kanekalon bun.
Okay.
And, the head wrap, and I put lipstick, and I did put foundation on, and I just want people to see. Like, I got my moisturizer, the Callense, this French moisturizer.
I'm familiar.
I recommend that. Like, it's $80 a bottle, but it lasts like 8 months, like easily. And I use it twice a day.
Okay.
And if they double the price, I would still buy it. This is how like on point it is. I don't know what they put in it. If placenta, I don't know. But my skin was looking raggedy last week.
Listen.
Raggedly.
Listen, Caldenly and minding your business will do a lot for that ass. Caldenly, drinking water, minding your motherfucking black ass business.
I think is minding your motherfucking ass business. Is like the key, because let me tell you, for the past 3 days, I've been minding my motherfucking ass business.
You like de-aged like 10 years. I see it just from here.
Listen, and even if you don't, that's okay too. But you know what? But keeping it simple, being clear.
Well, there's Anayansi's friend at the back.
Who's right here? Wait, right here.
Donnie,
say hi.
And it's like, he's still living there.
Yeah, but it's like, I think that definitely being clear about where you want to allocate your fucks is essential for looking and feeling optimal. Like, something really important about, like, there's some things you're gonna get hype about, but when people don't know how to not be hype, that is like a transformative thing. So it's like, where, if you have 5 fucks, where are you going to place them?
That's a question for our listeners. You have 5 fucks. Where do you allocate them?
Yes. Fuck allocation.
That's an actual question. For our listeners, our viewers, you have 5 fucks. Where do you allocate them?
I give one. Well, no, I give 2 to my husband, 2 to my mom.
That's 4.
And 1 is a freebie. And the freebie is usually from my friends. So.
Oh, but you have. Wait a minute. But it's 2 of us here.
Right.
First come, first serve.
Ooh, okay.
I didn't allocate any for my sister because she never, like, she just living her best black ass life. Like, she's just doing it, zipping it and doing it. So she good.
5 fucks.
Yeah. But you already have 3 that's already reserved.
He says, I don't give a fuck. She doesn't give any.
She don't give no fucks about nothing.
Who?
So Hedy, but you have a son. You
about to look like you too then. Cause you know what, like you really chilling.
So Hedy does really chill.
You know what? And the ability to be able to do that and do is such a powerful and under-recognized skill. The ability to like be chill. Like I think that people that are typically chill, they don't get credit for that they deserve for as chill as they are able to like maintain themselves. Like most of the people that are hype all the time.
Oh, Donnie behind you is saying that he doesn't give 2 fucks.
That's it. That's both hands. He don't give a fuck. 0 fucks.
All day, every day.
Like he's just he'll just be like, I'm chilling.
That's my cousin. My cousin Imada, she's an Aquarius.
He's an Aquarius. He's an Aquarius.
Oh, is that an Aquarius thing then?
It might be an Aquarius. Aquarius people give no fucks.
She don't get riled up over nothing. Nothing.
I'm telling you, he's an Aquarius, and all the Aquarius people I know, they just be like chill, almost to the point of like, are you alive, nigga?
Yeah.
Me, I'm like hype about everything all the time. So I have to really work hard at like allocating my fucks.
My rounded up tight because I'm a Virgo.
My fucks are my emotional energy because I'm a Pisces.
So y'all feel everything
from my body and my emotional energy.
Yeah.
So it's like my fucks are my feelings and my body goes fully. My fucks are my body.
Yeah.
And it's like, and last week my body paid for it. My body shut down on me. You all, the 2 of you know, because there was a lot of information being shared over that WhatsApp. WhatsApp was probably like
WhatsApp
was probably like, what's up with Jean-Pierre? It's too much. I'm shocked that it didn't shut down. There was a lot of information being shared.
It's true though. I mean, I think that definitely like I feel it in my body too, but I want to do something physical with my body in order to like it's like it's energy for me and I want to do something. Whereas I feel like my son is a Pisces and so it like sits there with him like emotionally, like it affects him in a way emotionally that just kind of like it renders him almost unable to do things physically because it's like the physicality of it is so much. Me, I want to go and run a marathon with like the
Which you do.
Yeah,
you do that.
Which she does. And then
but like
proper breaks.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, I have my gummies, but I ran out. So my mom is sending me. So I sent my mom CBD gummies and she's like, get the hair, take it. She was like, no, it's not for me.
Listen, shout out to y'all if y'all having CBD gummies to really help you allocate your fucks. Because I think that fuck allocation in 2020
or THC.
In this part of quarantine, like definitely being able to identify what you want to focus on is so critical.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I get from, well, 2 things, like one from, because I study Buddhism for, at this point, like 6, 7, maybe almost 10 years, is to be still in a storm, being still, and then also being like water.
Yes.
Like least resistance, where, you know, we have the president of Afro resistance here, Afro resistencia. But in one way, yes, resist, but in other ways to not, to be like water, right?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite sayings. Be like water, strong enough to hold up ships, light enough to slip through fingers. Like what is the goal all the time?
That saying, be like water, triggers me too though. Because it was used on me by this woman that was just exploring her. She had infiltrated this Black space. right?
My first mistake was
she had infiltrated this Black space. She did not let people know that she had just come into her Blackness, and she was occupying this space. Of course, she was Dominican. I shouldn't say of course. She was Dominican. Hold on. See, I don't like that. when people are like,
I was like this. Wait, I was like,
she was Dominican, and she was just getting. She didn't tell folks that she was just getting into her Blackness, but she was in that space, and we were supposed to facilitate something. And then, of course, she froze during the facilitation. And then when we were debriefing, she was like, I chose to be like water. And I was like, and then, of course, you know, there was also a woman there from Senegal, myself, an African-American woman, herself, and a mixed race Cuban woman that the mixed race Cuban woman, at the very beginning of our time together, she did state that she benefited from light skin privilege, and I can respect that when people start with that as a starting point, right? But this woman didn't say that, right? She didn't say any of that. So of course, all the labor fell on the darker skinned woman, and this woman chose to be like water, which meant that everything fell on the darker skinned woman. So it became this really thing. And when she said, I'm just getting to get to know my Blackness. And then I realized when we started facilitating that I needed to be like water, I was like, oh no. And then from then, when people say that, especially when it comes, and I understand the concept of being like water, right? I understand it fully. But when it's you, I feel like a lot of people use that to not do the work as well. Especially a lot of people. There's a few things, and this is like part of there's this culture of excuse that happens a lot of like, I'm stressed out, so I can't do this. I am self-care, so I can't do this. My mind is to this, so I can't do this. So there's also this like culture of like, all these things happen and I can't do this. And people feel that, I don't know, maybe there's my age, but I didn't have, like, I feel like there's a lot of excuse making not to do the work that you commit to doing. And I think it's part of like not doing what you commit to doing and using this as an excuse to not have done the work.
I think that is a generational thing, and the way that we are interpreting it as being part of a certain generation of like pushing through. I think that there was a lot less grace that we were offered when we were coming up in the world of work, that people have access to be like, nah. Like sometimes when people tell me no and they're younger than me, I'm like, what you mean? I could never have, right? But I also recognize that this is the reason why we did some of the things that we did, to be able to create a generation that is able to say no. And
so then say no.
But which is true. And I think that part of it is that I know that I'm triggered by certain things, like the same way that you're triggered by like, you know, sayings, right? Like, oh, like be like water. I'm also triggered by like everybody having anxiety, because everybody don't. Some niggas is just lazy. Like, let's just be clear. That it's like, if you don't want to do something, that's okay, but that don't mean that your fucking ass is anxious about it. You just
exactly
about it because you mad that you got to do it. Like some shit is just like, do what you said you was gonna fucking do, even if you struggle in the process. Like this idea that people constantly want to like kind of the amount of work, the amount of work that people will do to avoid work is exactly frustrating to me. Like I just don't fucking understand. But I also get that I will show up in the way that I said I was gonna show up, even if it's to my detriment. Right? And that I have to really not expect other people to do the same. And that part of being able, if like, I always have to think about that. Like I think all the time about like, what is it that you believe and what is it that you think? Right. And so often what I believe is in conflict with what I think, meaning that like, I believe that people should show up and do what the fuck they said they were going to do. But I also think that people have a right to not show up. So then, in which case, I have to, from situation to situation, think about how I'm going to process that. But I think that, and it's difficult to talk about, because when you say things like, oh, I'm triggered by a motherfucker saying they have anxiety, then there's always going to be someone that's going to be like, oh my God, she's like you're living in the past. And it's like, no, I'm not living in the past. I'm also recognizing the value of being able to work, right? And to be able to do certain things that enhance your skill set, to be able to navigate and to like persevere. And that's a difficult thing for me.
Brittany Morel said, be true to your word. Hey, Britt.
Yeah, and you know, for me also, there's this, especially when working in teams, right? And I know it takes, at the beginning, those things take a long time. And I think at Caña Negra, we have done a pretty good job at navigating it. And I think, for example, we had a conversation at sort of like a few weeks ago around the differences between like taking on things and then practicing consensus. And when you practice consensus, right? When you practice consensus, it doesn't mean that everybody is like, yay!
Wait, it was a consensus and it was a vote, because I was like,
right, that was it.
I was like, well, I vote, and then you're like, no, we have to come to a consensus. Now, well, what's the difference?
Exactly, because when what happens is that when people or 2 or 3 people decide what the group is going to do, then people get that reaction of, yes, they sign up to do something, then they get anxiety or they tune out, they take on things that they really don't want to do because they feel the pressure to do things, and they really don't want to do it. And then they tune out, it gets left out, and then it comes down to, I don't really want to do it. I knew that I wasn't going to do it when I signed up to do it.
Yeah, because it was like the majority rules.
The majority rules.
Who didn't agree, they feel slighted.
Exactly.
Like, but this is not what I wanted.
And then you have all these excuses because you really didn't want to do it from the beginning.
I'm okay with that.
I appreciated. Oh,
sorry, go ahead, Dash.
No, I was just saying that I appreciated you breaking that down for me, because a vote definitely, and just from your explanation, it's like, okay, that makes sense. If 2 of us vote and overrule the other one, then it's like the one who didn't want it, their voice isn't heard, or they feel that it's not heard.
And you don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have 1,000 excuses of why you're like, bitch, right. I'm doing this.
Yeah. And depending on who you're working with, you're almost like slightly sabotaging the shit because you want it to fail, because you were like, bitch, that's why I thought we shouldn't do this in the first place. So I think that there's also that. But I also feel like in that space, there's like one of my colleagues talks all the time about the difference between dialogue and discussion.
Exactly.
Right. And that dialogue is for sharing ideas and understanding and gaining understanding. And discussion is for making a decision. And so what happens is that when we in discussions as dialogue or vice versa, then that also leads to a misunderstanding, because then it's like, oh, I thought that we were just discussing it. And meanwhile, 2 other people be like, I thought we came to a conclusion. So not being clear about what the goals are about specific conversations. I mean, and it's true that when you are working, and also working in a group requires different things of different people than it would be for yourself. Like, even because like a lot of your own personal barriers, right, to whatever, to implementation for anything, I think that they come into play. So today, dude was sweeping the floor, and I don't know why, I asked him something, and he was like, the way that he responded made me think that he didn't want to do the floor, right? And I was just like, yo, if you don't want to do the floor, don't fucking sweep on my behalf. Like, I got arms, and as long as I got arms, it's going to get done, right? It may not get done this very second, but I also realized that was a thing for me, that when I see that people express or even like display, well, I don't want to have to do this, it's like in my mind, it's very hard to undo that thought. And so now I'm always nervous about them doing something for me or on my behalf, because I feel like they're going to like attack me, or that it's going to come back and be like, oh, okay. I'd rather someone say at the front end, I'm even going to take, or I understand when people change their mind too, because I can understand that sometimes things seem more doable, right? But if at a certain point it shifts, then I also expect to have to contribute to the type of relationship where someone can be like, Ev, I thought I wanted to do it, but I really don't. I changed my mind. Because I think that mind changing is a possibility and that can happen too. So it's like, that was the thing. And he had, he was like, what you talking about? Like, I'm fine. Like, I'm focused on sweeping. But I also had to think about what was it about me that was immediately putting forth that energy of like, you ain't being nice about this. And I also recognized that had a lot to do with the way that I was raised. I told y'all the rice story where my mom one day made me make a pot of rice and I didn't really want to do it. And she was like, make the rice. And, typical like teenage form. I was just like, fine, whatever. And that day the rice burned. And she was like, si no quieres hacerlo, no lo hagas. But don't do anything de mala gana. So exactly. I've always taken things, and mala gana, for those of you that don't speak Spanish, is like, like you really do it, basically, right? Like in a bad, from bad interest. And so it was just, that's always been a thing for me. So it's like if somebody agrees to do something and then they don't want to do it at the end, I'm fine, but don't make it seem as if the other people made you do it. Like if you took something on, you took something on. If you need help, then ask for the help. Don't be like, well, I'm overwhelmed now. And it's just like, I don't want to hear that shit because you took it on. Like there's a different thing for me.
Yeah, I don't know if Panamanians are just really, really, if they exaggerate a lot. Because that same story that you shared, Evelyn, around your mother, my grandmother was like, nos vas a envenenar a todos.
Yeah.
It was like,
yeah, that's exactly it. Was like the energy that you put forth when you do something, it really does impact. And like if she would have told me the story, I would have been like, estas viejas están inventando algo. But because I was the person that burned the rice.
And no, my grandmother was literally like,
yeah,
no, también no va a envenenar a todos aquí. And I was like, how am I going to, everybody's going to drop that tonight because I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was like, sí. And I was like, and now I tell Gibran the same thing. I'm like, no toques eso. No toques eso. Que yo no me quiero morir esta noche.
Yeah.
I'm like, and he's like, nadie se va a morir. I'm like, yo no sé.
Yeah.
I don't want to die tonight.
It's like, do it, do it. Like, hazlo de buena gana o no lo hagas. Like, that's always my thing. You know what? Like de buena gana or just don't. Because
exactly.
when it doesn't, the energy, right? Like, I don't know, if the energy that you put forth into something, right?
It feeds people's soul.
It's very evident in the way that people show up, in the way the outcome.
Yeah.
That. Like, even if somebody makes you a meal, they can make you the best meal. It hits your stomach wrong.
Yeah.
They give you the simplest meal de buena gana, you are like magically in love. So it's like, it's those things.
And that's why I don't trust restaurants just like that. It's hard for me to eat at restaurants. And then if I get sick, I'm like, I don't know who cooked my food.
No, I like going to restaurants because I don't like labor. So I'd rather someone else do stuff.
I don't,
it depends on the
I have a hard time sometimes at restaurants because I don't know I don't know.
Like, well, I don't mind restaurants, but I think that there's certain restaurants where I feel like energy has to be into it.
Yeah.
Right? Like certain types of food, particularly if I'm very familiar with that food, I'm less likely to be lenient, which is the irony, right? Like food that I don't know how to make, I'll be like, fuck it. But if it's food I know how to make, I'll be like, ¿Quién hizo este arroz de mala gana?
Yeah,
right?
I don't like going to Panamanian restaurants, Cuban restaurants, like certain Colombian restaurants. Because I'm like, I know what this is supposed to taste like, and this is not it.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like you robbed my money.
Yes, and I feel unloved. I feel unappreciated as a patron if it's not done with like the right, like it's not the right texture. Like, like the other day I went to like some Jamaican restaurant and the rice was like mushy. Y'all gonna sell this? Really?
I've never had mushy rice from a Jamaican.
Exactly. And it was like, it was very evident that whoever made it was just like, I give no fucks. Like they had no fucks left, right? And they were just like, we're about to just put this out and people are gonna eat it or not. And I was so, like, I honestly felt unloved.
Yeah.
Like,
you feel betrayed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like my husband, he's always like, because we work together. And so he's like, when you're in a bad mood, we can't work together because once the one bad thing goes wrong, then it's the next and the next and the next and the next. He's like, you know, when the energy starts to go to negative, we have to separate or do something else because then everything starts to go bad. Because he's like, once you're in that zone, it's hard for you to get out, and we're not gonna end up fighting over stupidity, you know. And so he's like, nah, I'm gonna leave you right there. I'm gonna go for a walk, and I'll meet you in 10 minutes. And I'm like, bye. Okay, so look, we have an agenda.
We do.
Woo! We have some things to talk about. Do we want to answer a couple questions? Because we got a question in the Instagram.
Oh shit, dear Genevieve.
Dear Genevieve.
Dear Genevieve. Ooh.
All right.
I feel like I need a cocktail now.
Oh yeah, we didn't. Yeah, what's that about?
Okay, there's a question on the Instagram, and then Romel Sandino sent a comment here.
Okay.
And these things actually have to do with one another.
Okay. So let's hear the Instagram first, and then we'll read Romel.
So this is from Sebastian Garcia. Hello, Caña Negra.
Hi.
What up? Your posts are really interesting. I'm glad I came across it. I do have some questions that I would like to clarify, specifically to this post. You're not white passing, you are white. If someone is mixed with black, white, and Taino, and comes out pale white with black hair, they are perceived to be white and go through issues as a white girl, correct? Even though there are other white non-Latinos who go through the same issue and treat her differently, but because she is mixed, can't she be considered a type of black person or a type of Taino person or a type of white person as well because her DNA is mixed? Also, if a person is a white-skinned Latino whose ancestors are black, why wouldn't that person be able to say the N-word if they are black? I ask because you make a great point that a white Latino is white because they aren't treated like a black person. But to this day, there are Latinos with white features who say the N-word freely because they have a black brother or mother biologically connected. And so I'm going to stop there because I did answer them. And my first thought was like, why you want to say the N-word so bad?
Well,
that's like,
yeah. And then why do non-black Latinos, Latinx want to say the N-word so badly? And they say it. It rolls off their tongue.
Yeah, you say it anyway.
I hear them in Target. I hear them in the beach. Regular cell phone conversations.
And then they want to pull out
they talk to their girlfriends saying the N-word, to their aunties, to their kids. I don't get it. They
want to pull out their DNA test. If you have to pull out a DNA test to justify your use of the N-word.
No, but the thing is they don't, because I've heard the Mexican folks that have nothing to do with blackness also saying it.
But to the greater, or to the crux of the question, which we got a lot from people. We got this a lot from people. My grandmother's black. Yeah, but are you black? Is my question. I don't care that your grandma was black, and I'm sick and tired of people using that. You know, they only ever pull out the black grandma when it's time to benefit, and not even really benefit, but when it's time to participate in blackness. But it's never for any type of justice around black people.
Right.
You know, where were you with your black grandma when all of your friends and family were saying anti-black shit? Where was your black grandma then? Because I'm looking at you crazy. Because now you're mixed, right? This entire time you've been bigging up your abuelo con ojos azules. You've been bigging up every non-black person in your family. Now all of a sudden everybody wants to be Taino. Everyone wants to be Afro-Latino, but not black, and have rights to all of the rhythm, but not the blues, as Evelyn says. What is that about?
Denise Porter Insunza says, you're white, I'm white, do the workshop, pay the money to get the info. Thank you, Denise.
Thanks.
And then Brittany says, if people look at you and think you're white, guess what?
Guess what? Bitch, you guessed it. I don't understand classically mixed. And this is what I say all the time. It's the tragic mulattoes and the tragic mestizos that got me fucked up. That really, like, work that out with your therapist. Work that out with your DNA test. Work that out with your muertos. Whatever you got to do. Why are you bringing that on me? I got enough to deal with.
And that's the thing. I think folks need to really examine the use of language and why this is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you say blanco this and blanco that? Wouldn't that be fun just to say that?
What?
For them to say blanco this and blanco that.
Well, I don't get it.
Instead of saying my end this, my end this.
Oh, okay.
No, because blanco this and blanco that.
Because they're the standard. They don't have to think about it. Like the idea, because we got a lot of pushback in our workshops and talks and panels that, I'm not white like the Anglos.
Right.
I'm not white like the Trump supporters. And I'm like, my landlord is white and she don't support Trump. Neither. She's a white Panamanian. So that makes her not white Panamanian. You don't make sense. You don't make sense. Krishna, who always is supporting us all day and night. Krishna. Out by me is Ecuadorian, all day N-word, this same response, but so-and-so is black.
Just Krishna.
I would add to that wickedy white, I would say wickedy wicked.
Whack.
Wickedy white whack.
White and whack.
Exactly.
The thing is if you have to send us this long message explaining your ancestry.
Exactly, Swahili. Swahili is on it. She just wanted to pass to say the N-word. I think no one should be utilizing the N-word. You don't go too far. That's another discussion.
Yeah, because my mom agrees with that. Like, she's like, you shouldn't say the N-word. I'm like, Mommy, let's change the topic because let's just change the topic.
Yeah.
Because we in a good space.
We're in a space to go with.
Well, I mean, if they just want, right, they want to be able to say the N-word and they're looking for reason to be able to say it. Oh, my great uncle on my mama's side is black. So can I get in? Let me in. Let me say it. Tag me. Like, no, motherfucker, you don't get a chance.
The whole thing is like, they're black, but are you?
So in Panama, remember, there is a rapper from the interior. What was his name, Dash?
El Nigga.
And he was not black. He is not black. There's not one stitch of blackness in this man's bones. But that's his name.
But when he travels to the U.S., he doesn't use the word.
But when he travels to the U.S., he doesn't use that name. He uses some other type of name. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I think that there's also, one of the things that is important to really recognize is how much people want to constantly exploit Black culture and be associated with it in some sort of way, which is why also people are thirsty to say the N-word, right? So it's like recognizing that there is a coolness to it.
Black cool.
Right? That there's Black cool. And so people often want to be associated with Black cool, but they don't want to be associated with Black pain at all. And it's like, you can't get one without the other. You can't get the risk. And then, you don't want none of the risk, but you want all the rewards.
That's the thing. But why did he get a pass in Panama, though? With so many Black people that are actually like reggaeton in Panama and hip hop in Panama.
That's a whole nother discussion because you know how I feel about. Anyway, I'm keeping my mouth shut.
You know what?
I'm not gonna go in on Panamanians tonight because we'll be here all night. But that's
I was like, how did that even happen?
How does what happen?
Huh?
Allow it.
What even happen?
How they allowed this
I agree.
rapper to call himself a nigga.
Like, my thing is, you come up with a bad idea, right? Fine. Any human can come up with a bad idea, but you ain't got no friends, nobody in the chain that would be like,
that was strategic. Then he was pushed all the way to the top.
That's what I'm saying. That nobody along. I mean, were they looking to have him
step on everybody else? Yes.
Or like, was this a thing where they were like, oh, okay, you know what? If we have this conversation or this is gonna be like buzzworthy.
You know, black men always giving the keys to the kingdom away.
You're right.
For less. Are you kidding?
You're right.
But that's a whole nother line. Let's get to Romel.
Are we finished with the?
Are we? Sorry. I got into my.
I'm gonna go to the email in a second because I think there was another email too that we had gotten.
That was in relation to the workshop, but yeah, we can. We
said that we were going to answer, so I'm going to look for that.
So we're just like, so our response is, no, motherfucker, you can't say the N-word. Stop with your bullshit. We don't care how many siglos and generations back you have somebody black in your family. Go away. Next.
Next caller.
Next caller.
As I was watching this video on white. Okay, so YNT is YouTube. But we also use it for white when you say white.
2520s.
Well, I was watching this video on YouTube, conversation on the relationship or lack between Black and Latina community. And that's always triggering for me, Black and Latina community. So where are we? Where are we at, right? There was this Afro-Latina who shared that in Latin America, there was this reverse one-drop rule that shaped the experience of Black folks in Latin America different than U.S. Black. Would love to hear your thoughts, or if you could direct me to resources on this. I would say the resources is to take our workshop and to also take the Black Latin American history class that I'm giving with Javier. But what they're talking about specifically is the Gracia al Sacar, which was a certificate where if you were not white by law, you could buy whiteness. You could buy whiteness to be white by law. But that wasn't a thing that shaped the lives of Black people. And I always, like for our workshops, because we do the anti-Blackness in the Latina community, I don't even put that in our workshops because then people are like, oh, so that was a thing. No. The thing is that Latin America was shaped by the caste system and Black people were Black people. Mm-hmm. If you could get that certificate, you had access to money and most Black people did not. And so that wasn't this whole common thing that people were participating in. It was if you could acquire money because it was expensive to basically bribe and buy this whiteness. And the reason why people did that was because if you were in a caste system, which was part of the subordinate classes, you wanted to buy this whiteness so that you could be in the higher classes because white was at the pinnacle, Black was at the bottom. So that was a way to get out of your subjugation. But it wasn't a widespread norm thing. One thing that the US had was the one-drop rule, where if you had one drop of African blood, you were assigned to the subordinate group, which was Black. In Latin America, you had all these different mixes, right? However, you still had Black people at the bottom and you still had white people at the top, and everybody was mixed in the castas. So that didn't shape the experience of Black folks in Latin America, and I don't want people to think that because that wasn't the norm. Anything to add?
I'm looking for the question and I can't find it. Sorry.
So Brittany asked, what was the reverse one-drop rule? So there's two types of one-drop rules. The one-drop rule of hypo descent existed in the US only in South Africa, meaning if you had one drop of African blood, you were assigned to the subordinate group, which was not the dominant group, which was Black. In Latin America, they did have that phenomena of the reverse one-drop rule. They say reverse because it's the reverse of the US, because obviously they're putting the US as a standard, which I have problems with. But anyway, they're saying it's the reverse of the US one-drop rule. And so in Latin America, it was the one-drop rule of hyper descent. So you're catapulting to be part of that dominant class. And so that was, again, only if you had the resources to buy the certificate of whiteness. And so on one hand, it was if you could prove that 5 generations of your family line was indeed white and Christian, because that's the other thing, white and Christian, then you could be legally white. The other way was just to pay money. And so this is a longer conversation. You know, we have other topics to get to, but yeah, sign up for our classes.
So classes, when is your next class, Dash?
So our next class, Verano Negro, is August 25th, 27th, and 29th.
And it's really great, everybody. Go and sign up immediately, please. So here's another question, and this one is regarding, and if you have questions, please email us, radiocañanegra@gmail.com. And a lot of questions are based on our anti-Blackness in the Latina community, part 1. We are having part 2, August 15th. So sign up for that as well. And we will be adding more part 1 classes as well. And we will be we will be adding some specialized ones too, around education and around all these other things. If you would like us to have one at your organization, we have packages available as well. Email us and we'll send you our packages that are really, really great. And also, you know, like, white people should not be benefiting from this work. That's another conversation. But anti-Blackness within the Latino community should be actually facilitated by Black people that are from Latin America. So let's do this. So this question is in follow-up from our first part, and this has to do with the Negro documentary, which we have to start planning the 10-year anniversary. It's coming up next year.
I'm wearing
sequins. Dash, you give us the marching orders for us to start organizing this 10-year anniversary. So I viewed the entire documentary and enjoyed it very much. I had a few questions that may or may not be addressed, but I am including them now in case they are not, as I do not wish to derail the agenda of your workshop. Thank you very much. And this question is from Antonio Gumucio, who was part of our workshop. See, I really like when participants are conscious like that. Mestizaje, I understand this term is not inclusive. I remember growing up and reading about Vasconcelos and thinking this concept about the blending of many cultures is what made us different. It was what made it different, better than the US. I was naive and now I know better. I wonder if there is a new term that would be better at expressing this belief. I know that we are far away from eliminating anti-Blackness and achieving inclusion for all, but perhaps a term that could serve as that aspirational belief. Womp womp. Latinidad. Similar question. This term seems to be recognized as non-inclusive. Are there any inclusive alternatives? Latine. I like this term much better than Latinx. How did you come up with it? I wonder if you have any literature to support that switch, as I have had difficulty trying to explain to others why this term might be more inclusive.
It's still the question?
I know, I'm like, how long is this shit?
So it's 3 questions. The first one around mestizaje, the second one around Latinidad, and then the third one around Latine. It's a long, you know these folks.
That's true. When they get on a computer and they ask a question, they want to know everything.
Everything.
Okay. Explain it all.
Everything.
They think our name is Clarissa. We can't explain it all.
You know, it's interesting that this person, even though they understand that mestizaje is fucked up, and they still want another term that is not as fucked up.
Right.
Is nice fucked up?
People always do that. They want to replace one colonizer or oppressor with another. That's not how this shit works. We have to dismantle it. Why we need a replacement?
So the response to that is no, there's not another term. But there are 5 races, and those 5 races exist in Latin America, right? Latin America is a region. Latin America is a continent. And 5 races exist in Latin America. So mestizaje is this idea, is a political agenda to better the race. It's a political agenda to basically erase blackness, erase being indigenous, and erase the other 4 races but whiteness. And uphold white supremacy. That's what mestizaje is. It's to basically merge all these races together, invisibilize them, and keep the superior race, which is whiteness. Right. And make all the other races uphold this race and make those races be subservient to that race. Right? But you don't have to uphold that. You can identify yourself by race. What are the 5 races you ask yourself? Indigenous, Black, African descendants, right? Black, white, Asian, and
Black.
No, I already said Black.
Oh, I didn't say it.
Oh my goodness, the last one is
Pacific Islander.
Pacific Islander. And it's because I have the least. It's because I don't have a relationship with the Pacific Islander one. I have done the least amount of.
Yeah.
I have the least amount of relationship with it. It's not that it's the least important one. It's just that I personally, Genevieve Williams Comrie, have the least amount of relationship with it. So those five races actually exist within Latin America. So that's your answer there. The second,
be clear for the motherfuckers that keep saying this shit. Latin American is not a race for the last and final time, because I'm always amazed at the amount of people that will say, "Oh, I didn't know Latin American was not a race." Like that.
It's a region.
In really?
Yes.
In the year of Beyonce's internet, y'all still out here not even trying to get really.
And even like because people say it's not a race, it's an ethnicity. It's not even an ethnicity. It's not. Because you're not going to tell me I have the same ethnicity as a Embara person, an indigenous person. We are not the same ethnicity.
We're from the same region.
We're both Panamanian. That's about it, right?
Nationality.
Nationality.
So people keep getting, it really pisses me off. It continues to piss me off when people say things like, "Oh, I'm Black and Puerto Rican." Puerto Rican is a nationality. So what race is that? What is that?
So you're Black and Black because there's lots of Black Puerto Ricans too. Like that tells me nothing.
Right? And people continue getting away with it.
That's like saying I'm Black and I eat rice.
Right. Or plantain, right? Which a lot of us do. Black.
Actually, my mother-in-law says stuff like, "Eso es un plátano," which means they're from the Caribbean, or they could be Dominican, but she will say like, "Oh, ese tiene cara de plátano." And I understand exactly what she means.
Yeah.
And it's not, I understand exactly what she means.
Our elders be coming up with some dichos, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So then the second question that this person had, Latinidad, similar question. Yeah, we already answered that, whatever. Okay, and then Latine. Ay, pero es que,
No, because there's resources online for that.
There's resources, but the thing is that, why do you need literature to support it? Like, why do you...
That's white pathological.
Go to LASA. LASA has all the researchers, especially their white researchers, and they
want
all the white researchers. Contact the director of all those research centers, because they'll fart all the research in your face, and they'll happily do so.
And you'll get pink eye after they fart in your face. But that inherently is white pathological to me. That you need literature. Look, there's a couple Afro Puerto Rican, Black Puerto Rican groups that use todes. There's Afro Argentine group that uses the X, that uses the X. There's an Afro Colombian trans group that uses the X. You can just even browse social media, you know, if you're feeling lazy, because that's why we get most of our questions, because motherfuckers are lazy. Because you cannot have the power of Google in your hand and type that into an email instead of typing it into Google.
You right, Brittany. You damn right. Brittany says here, but white people lie in writing, so what does it really prove?
It's true.
You right. You right, girl.
People have so much faith in the academy, and it's very bizarre to me and disturbing. Because the amount of intellectual property, the information that people extract from normal negras like us to publish their book, and y'all are gonna believe them over us, is astounding to me. We said what we said. Latine. If that's not good enough for you,
next.
Explain why it's not.
No thanks.
Next, for playing. Next caller.
Next caller. Next. Gavel. Boom.
I'm so happy that folks are writing in these days. So if folks have questions, please put them on the chat. We will answer them live right now.
And we will answer, but we will play you if you deserve to be played. Like, let's just be clear. Our answers are authentic, real, and they're honest. And so
we're not taking this with a smile. That time is over. Or actually, it never was. It's because they wanted us to smile. We were like,
you know what I did notice though, which I really appreciate, that Dasha's nails match her lipstick.
Ooh, yes, that was quite cool.
And she was doing this. I was like,
I just repainted it because it was chipped, and I have a complex with chipped nails. My mom gave me a complex. She's like, I thought but if it's chipped, just take it off.
I hate chipped nail polish to the point where, like, if I go to a restaurant and the server has chipped nails, I don't want them to serve me no more. Like, I feel like it's just gross. Like, which is one of the reasons why I don't get my nails done, because I hate when it chips, and then I'm out here like.
You all must have been disgusted with me when I had those.
Yes, I told you to take it off. Remember, I was like that.
But I didn't have the tools to take it off.
You know, no nails.
That's why I always have acrylic nails. You know, before the pandemic. Now I'm about to order press-on nails because I just need to feel like myself again.
Yeah.
But I always got acrylic because the polish never chipped. It just stayed the whole time. But I want to move on to what we were discussing. And, you know, this is a bit heavier than the current themes that we're talking about. But the 5 Garifuna leaders kidnapped in Honduras.
The region, man. The region is in dire.
I'm just gonna read a little summary. The men were abducted from their homes in July. And so protesters had taken to the streets of Honduras after 5 Garifuna men were kidnapped by unknown assailants in the town of Triunfo de la Cruz. According to the witnesses, armed men arrived in Triunfo around 5 a.m. on Sunday, which I'll get the date. They came in 3 vehicles, went house to house looking for the men, forced the men into vehicles at gunpoint. Residents of Triunfo are now protesting, demanding that authorities do something and return the men. The vehicles did not have license plates, which is a tactic used by both the Honduran state security forces and criminal gangs, which in some contexts, pretty much the same people, right? And one of the individuals abducted was 27-year-old Albert Snyder Centeno, a community activist who has advocated for the Honduran government to compensate the Garifuna people for stolen land. He has previously reported threats linked to his role defending territorial rights for the Garifuna. Also missing are Milton Joel Martinez Alvarez, Suami Aparicio Mejia, Junior Rafael Juarez Mejia, and a man named Mamba, whose full name hasn't yet been confirmed. Miriam Miranda, who is the greatest of all time, Machetera, a Garifuna leader from the Black Fraternal Organization of Honduras, OFRANE, who has also faced death threats and abductions and illegal imprisonment, has called for justice. What happened shows that powerful people who have illegally taken control of our territory are emboldened by the state's contempt for the international court ruling. Justice means prosecuting those who ordered this crime. The abduction, even more, the abduction happened just weeks after the murder of Antonio Bernardes, a Garifuna leader from the Punta Piedra community. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Honduras, at least 5 Garifuna leaders have been killed since September 2019. The Garifunas are descendants of an Afro-Indigenous population from St. Vincent who were transported from their home by the British. Not transported, they were deported.
Right. They were like put me out.
Yeah, they were deported, taken out from their home by the British and abandoned on the Honduran coast in the late 18th century. And the last 2 sentences, many groups, including drug traffickers, palm oil companies, and tourism developers, have tried to claim the coastal lands where the Garifuna community lives. That's important. Honduras is known as one of the most dangerous. Huh?
No, I'm saying that they are in cahoots, right? Because then it's like the drug traffickers, along with the tourism developers, along with the corrupt officials. So any of them, all of them could have gotten together and been like, we need to remove these people because they are against our interests collectively.
And so Honduras is known as one of the most dangerous places to be a land rights or environmental activist, with hundreds having been killed since 2009.
No, you know, like something, and this has been going on for years and years, right? And folks over here, I feel if folks are not Black and really tapped into like human rights issues, folks are really not in tune with what's going on. And folks are still vacationing in Honduras and going to all these places that
Puerto Rico
are Garifuna land that are being sold off, right? And then calling, because folks call me to find out, oh, should I still go? No,
we're closed.
You shouldn't. No, I don't mean now. Like folks call me to see if they should be going to these places, Roatán and all these places.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're closed. Latin America is closed.
Correct. Like you shouldn't be going to vacation. Like this is not a vacation, right? But they get confused with delegation and vacation, and political versus vacation, and they think, oh, you know, since their delegation's happening, Afro Latino Travels is going.
No, we're not going nowhere.
No, you know what I mean, Dash. I mean, like before.
I know, but the audience has to know too.
Before COVID, I'm talking.
Yeah,
they get confused between what vacationing is at resorts.
They're not confused. They just want you to say yes. You should go.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
They're
right?
looking for. They're looking for.
This is not vacation.
And they're suffering.
We're sleeping on the floors. We're sleeping on the floors at these leaders' families' houses. We're not sleeping in hotels with swimming pools. We're not doing. Anyway, so, and there's a real disconnect between like oppression and land, and survival and death, and young people, right? Because the folks that are being kidnapped, disappeared, and murdered, my heart goes out to them. Yes, 100% yes. My heart is right here for them, and my heart goes out to their kids. Because a lot of them have kids that are like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 that are living under heightened security and without parents.
And a lot of them actually witnessed their parents being murdered in front of them. As we've seen in Honduras, in Colombia.
Yes. People and living with threats of sexual violence. A lot of the girls, a lot of their girl children are living under sexual violence threats. And I can't imagine being a 14-year-old and receiving text message threats that you're going to be raped in 2 days and then have to have security because of that. It's disgusting.
Or have to flee, right? Because the migrant caravan that they were talking about were a lot of Black Central Americans and a lot of Hondurans. There's a couple not high profile cases because I don't think a lot of people know about it. I mean, we know about it, but you know, within that migrant caravan, you had Black people fleeing their lands because they were getting those text messages. We're going to rape your child. We're going to rape you and kill you.
Yeah.
And they had to flee. They had no other choice. You have friends, Genevieve, that have escaped assassination attempts and have death threats currently against them. And I even hate bringing that up because it's a real thing. It's not a topic. You know, these are our lives. These are people's lives. And I don't think people like really understand the depth of it.
And I think there's so many levels of fucked upness to this, right? The reality, the acceptance or the recognition that this is people's lives. But then I think that one of the other things is that, like, when we talk about human rights, particularly in the United States, we don't talk about global shit. And so, like, the lack of, even though globally so many people stand up when things happen in the United States, right? The fact that the United States cannot or is not bothered or we're not taught or whatever to be able to reciprocate that energy. See, mama, to reciprocate that energy is such a missed opportunity to be able to support people. And this is one of the reasons why these things still happen, right? Like so many, 2 years ago, I had several doula clients that were, somehow they made it here, right? With like in the caravan as part of some of the caravans. And it's like, their stories are absolutely heart-wrenching and unbelievable. I mean, these are like 8.5-month pregnant people traveling with babies, traveling with toddlers, and having to keep silent for weeks and weeks and months at a time in order to get to this, you know, forsaken fucking country. And then when they get to the border, it's like, why did you do that? Or there's so much, you know, critique about why they chose to do it. And it's like, what else were they supposed to do? Right? How else were they supposed to show up? It's unbearable.
I just opened up because when they came 2000, and Nancy was born 2013, so it was 2015 when that caravan, when one of those caravans came to the Bronx. I documented a lot of their stories with consent, of course. And I'm gonna read some of the stuff that they said. One of the women shared, I was in a group of around 20 women and about 12 children. We had heard that groups were leaving from Tegucigalpa, and my sister and I decided to join them with my 2 nieces. All of us stuck together until one of the older women twisted her ankle in Mexico. Her ankle was so swollen, we helped to carry her as long as we could. I still cry thinking of how much pain she must have been in, but we carried her as far as we possibly could. She had to stay in Mexico because we had no medicine, no painkillers, no nothing, and our arms felt like we were about to give out. I had her cell phone number, but it is disconnected. Her name was Andalucia. I came along with my 2 younger daughters. This is another woman now. I came along with my 2 younger daughters. We walked from Tegucigalpa. I started seeing a lot of people the closer I got to Guatemala. I met a woman in Guatemala that told me she was going to the United States. I asked if I could join them. She said, sure. There were a lot of groups of people that we met along the way, but I was the only Black one in all of those groups. And I had no money because I had no plan. I was pregnant and coming with my 2 younger children. And then this is what I wrote. Once on U.S. soil in a detention center in Texas and in the hands of the authorities, some of the women reported that the fragility of their existing safety became more fragile, and then in turn became more vulnerable. Women that shared personal testimony shared that they thought that they knew what suffering was in their home country of Honduras, but they all agreed that during the testimony, they had actually learned what suffering was as soon as they were placed in custody of Customs and Border Protection. One woman reported that she was detained 7 days with her children, and they kept on changing them from cell to cell at different times in the night without blankets in a freezing cold detention center. And this is one of the testimonies. An officer told me that I came here to get rid of my children because they were going to deport all the women and keep the children right here. They threw juice boxes at us to drink them. They give us barely cooked cold scrambled eggs with cold hard fried potatoes. I've never experienced something so dehumanizing like this in my life. I never imagined that these behaviors would be acceptable in this country. Minerva, a mother of 3 children, migrated with 2 daughters, and I have at least 100 of those stories.
They separate their children. The children are like begging to see their parents. I
don't understand the cruelty.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
Any child over 13, they separated from their mothers. 13. And these are things that they don't share. 13. Any girl or boy over 13, they separate from their mother.
Brittany brought up the documentary on Netflix, Immigration Nation, had me in tears. I cannot watch that documentary. First of all, I know they didn't do it justice. That's for one. Number two, it's too it's too close to home. It's to the bone, you know. And I have more than a handful of friends who have came to the U.S. through and like coming from Ecuador or Colombia or Chile, walking through the Darien jungle, which actually were raising funds for La Peñita, which has become like one of the most important crossing points in recent years. Right now, there's over 2,000 people there, and the camp was made for 100 or so people. And we're talking about the jungle. We're talking about animals. We're talking about vehicles can't pass through. One white person, of course, because white people think they're invincible, drove an old Chevy. They attempted to drive through the jungle, and the car is still there. The jungle has claimed it. But this is wild animals. People get raped. Women who start off solo, by the end of a few months, they now have a child, their rapist child, right? And they're making this journey. If they do get to Mexico, then they're subject to being in a detention center for months. If you don't have someone to claim you in the States, who knows how long you're going to be in the detention center? Because I've had friends who had family in the States, and they were still left to be in there for months. So imagine people who have no one to claim them, which a lot of people, that's the case for a lot of people. You're sleeping in the actual jungle. People rob you, mistreat you, you know, the absolute violence, you know, and then to be subject to that same violence sanctioned by the state. So it's like, when am I ever gonna, you know, is this worth it? A lot of people ask that. Maybe I should have stayed and you know, and faced the violence in my country for all of this, right? And it's, yeah, I have
tons of like regret and just like I know I've heard stories like my entire life of people who came here and the ways that they got to the United States. I've always been amazed at just like the simple ways in which people start to tell their story, because the violence is so normalized. Mm-hmm. That's also a real shocking part of like, yeah, I saw people raped. Yeah. I saw people like,
yeah,
right? It's almost
I saw a shark eat my friend on the boat from Cuba. Because I know a couple people, that they had to throw someone over.
It's like the choices that people make, or that people feel that they are, you know, that they are forced to make. I will never cease to be amazed at the resilience of the human spirit, and the fact that people are still having to make these like choices, right? In 2020. Like I keep in contact with several of my clients, the ones that I spoke to earlier, and also people that I've known throughout my entire life, including my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because my dad was someone who was like, I was telling someone the other day that my dad came here and both my parents came to the United States in overstayed visas. And that this was at a time where, ICE raids, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right, were common. So a lot of people would come to New York, for example, like in our community, they would come to New York and they would work in factories when the area near 34th Street, right, was like, you could get a job.
Yeah,
right?
the garment
district was like, that was it. You could get a job very easily. So people would be like, oh, come and I'll bring you. And then there would be like these random raids. And like when I was younger, my dad would tell me stories about how people would just like be jumping out the window because when they came, it was like unexpected. And so you had to try to like leave. And as a matter of fact, my dad was deported when I was born. So a couple months before I was born, he was actually caught in one of these raids and they sent him back to Guatemala. Right. And so he wasn't able to be here, when my mom delivered me. And so just thinking about that being like normal for them, right? Like okay, well, you know what? So-and-so broke his leg jumping out the fourth floor. So-and-so, did this. And it's just like, wow, like people have some stories. And I think that that's one of the things that we don't get to tell is people's stories. So that's one of the reasons why I love watching like Negro and watching, listening to like stories from people that Genevieve has interviewed along the caravan and other experiences, because I think that that's one thing that Black people don't ever get to tell is their story. They just get to have the story and try to put it somewhere so that they can function optimally to serve other people. But our stories don't ever fucking matter. So it's like when people, which is one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that I've been able to do this work in restorative practices, because one of the things that it has done for me is to rob me of that US-centered idea that people have to hurry up and get to the point and be comfortable listening to people's story and process. And so it's like, I wonder what life would be like. And Dash is really good about like having her elder stories, right? Her elder friendships. But that's one of the things that elders want from us. They want us to listen, and they want us to listen in real time. And we don't often get to like listen to people. And I think particularly Black people get robbed of that way that we show effort and appreciation and value is just to listen to these stories. That's our work.
Yeah. I tell everybody, hang out with your elders, interview them. I go to bingo with my grandma. I'm the one telling her to come to bingo. Like, are you kidding?
And they out party you too. Like that's one thing. The right elder will out party your ass. You be like, I'm sleepy. We've been out since 7:30 in the morning. They'll be like, hey.
Right? Well, we have Luis asked, where can we read your writing about the mothers at the border you mentioned? Jambi, I'm writing a couple books, okay?
Right.
So here's the thing.
Publishing coming soon.
That's a great question, and it made me realize. So I used to work a little bit of information about me that maybe a lot of people don't know. Maybe a lot of people do know. Who knows? So I used to work at the UN before, right? But before that, I've always been a human rights advocate. And I used to work at the U.S. Human Rights Network. Part of my work, being a human rights advocate from jump, has been to do human rights documentation. Part of my work around doing human rights documentation, which I have been doing probably for over 20 years, is actually listening to people's stories. And I have focused on African descendant communities. So I've had the privilege, and it's a real privilege, and it's a real honor, and it's a responsibility, and I take that responsibility very, 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 very serious. And listening to communities, and it's not individuals, right? Because even though I listen to individuals, I have to listen to individuals that are part of a community, because human rights in order for a human right violation to be an actual human right violation, there has to be an undeniable, very serious. What happened? There's an echo. There has to be an undeniable. You have to prove that there's an undeniable collective violation of a human right. So it can't be an individual issue. It has to be a collective issue. And in order to prove that there's a collective issue, you have to interview individuals. So I've had the honor, and it's a real responsibility and privilege, to listen to hundreds of people share their stories of what they believe are human rights violations, right? And there's a real trust that goes into that, because people are like trusting me with so many stories. And a lot of them are not for me to publish. A lot of them will be like, y esto no es para Naciones Unidas, esto es para que usted sepa. And I have to make it really clear, okay, si es para que yo sepa, no puede estar incluido en el documento que voy a meter en Naciones Unidas. And they are like, oh, that's a beautiful scene.
Taking care of our elders, what we were just saying. Your elders, taking care of your people.
Taking care of our people.
You got to do it.
So yeah, so that's that. So a lot of them. So this one specifically, I didn't do for the UN. This one specifically, I actually did for Mothers on the Move, because this one specifically, all these organizations that deal with people from Honduras, right? Like Carecen. They didn't do jack shit for these women, these Garifuna women. They didn't do jack shit for these Garifuna women. Then when we started putting pressure on them from the Bronx, and it was Mothers on the Move and the Iglesia Española Evangélica with Danilo, who I think this issue caused him to have cancer in the stomach and die years later. Then they jumped in, but they didn't give any money. They just wrote up some op-ed for New York Times. But they didn't do jack shit. And that's how that works. That's how blackness works. Nobody gives a damn. And then you have community members donating, having meetings, the local Bronx-based Garifuna organizations stepping in, looking for housing, looking for food, looking for clothing, looking for services for these women and their children. Making sure, because they didn't get placed in detention centers, which is not what we wanted, but the women had the monitoring devices, right, on there, and they have to pay for them. So you have private detention centers getting money from the government to keep track of the women, and then renting the monitoring devices to the women. The women are not getting any form of subsidy, but the detention centers are still getting their money. And then the community have to look for housing, for food, for clothing, for childcare, and then the woman can't work on top of that.
Any which way they can exploit us through imprisoning us, because these are hired guns. These are mercenaries. These are paramilitaries. Like, people talk about paramilitaries in Latin America. The paramilitaries are in the U.S. These private companies do the bidding of these white elites that run the country, that make policy to favor the people that they're going to hire to then exploit our bodies, restrict our freedoms, to pilfer money from us, and it's either a slow kill or a fast kill. Either way, we end up dead.
And then they couldn't congregate together. So you couldn't have more than, I think it was 3 women with the thing together at the same time. But we said, fuck that. We didn't care.
Because it'll be an insurrection. They don't want us gathering.
We were like, let them come here. Because we were gathered at a church. They would gather at a church. We were like, let them come here. Let them come to the church.
Yeah, pull up.
They didn't come once. They didn't come not once.
Pull up.
Because it was a food pantry. And the women were working at the food pantry. They were doing like everything at the food pantry. And then you had women that were getting these massive headaches because, of course, they had to charge the machine. And they had to sleep with it on, be in charge.
Oh, my God.
No, it was a hot mess. And then they couldn't, some of them didn't get their, it was a hot mess. It was, and then parenting with that on.
Your daily activities. And this is why I tell people, I'm not going to be nice to you when you ask questions about Black women, Black experiences, because this is the shit that we have to deal with. And then you're over here asking if you could say the N-word. Fuck off. And I say that with every ounce of disrespect in the universe. Fuck off. Okay? Because this is normal, right? And it shouldn't be. As Evelyn said, it shouldn't be normal. This constant war and violence on our bodies, our mental state, our psychic, everything. And we're dealing with all of these things as well as the daily life, right? The things that we have to do. And that also comes with white pathology at every turn, right? So you asking a question or can you share this? Can you clarify this? You're going to get it how I give it.
Exactly.
And that's all there is. Period, boo. Like, that's the period. And that's just it. I sometimes am marvel at the amount of emotional, physical, mental work that we do on an everyday basis. It's like I read a magazine, nobody looks like me. I have to literally do the work, the emotional and mental work to undo and figure out how to make something work for me when it's in a world that you're being told that you're not enough, that you're too much, right? And that's constant effort. Plus, I got to deal with people, with other fucking humans who are also at different phases and stages of doing the same work. So not everyone has done the work or does it the way that you do it, right? Which is why we fucks with each other, because we're at like a similar right. But like I may deal with my aunt who is not at a different space, or who is telling me shit like, "Ooh, when your hair is relaxed, you're gonna be beautiful," right? Or show me, what is what qualifies you to talk about anti-Blackness.
And you have to save that grace for your loved ones, right? If I'm saving that grace for my husband, my mom, my brother, my sister, Genevieve and Evelyn, there ain't none left for you, guy on the internet.
No, and then I'm laughing because then you have the little opportunist kids like Gibran and Anayansi that want to get over because they have fully stopped watching shows in Spanish. They have fully stopped.
These are Genevieve's adorable kids, by the way.
Oh, they're adorable and they're opportunists.
And why have they stopped?
Pardon me?
Why have they stopped?
And Gibran is a spokesperson, the one that has no juicio. He says to me, I was like, ¿Por qué están viendo eso en inglés? And he says to me, porque mamá está black. Está black. Los españoles no tienen nadie black.
So he's pleading his case that there's no black people in Spanish speaking shows.
So what am I supposed to say?
Right.
But he knows it. That's the thing. He's a little opportunistic runt.
But you have to explain, Genevieve, you prefer speaking Spanish at home, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We only speak Spanish at home.
And so the kids, they're sneaking off and watching English language shows.
Right.
And Gibran, the eldest, decides to speak and say, listen, there are no black people on these Spanish speaking shows.
Which is true.
He didn't even call you mama, like the subtext, even though he called you mama, it was like Genevieve.
Look, JV.
There's no black people.
JV, there's no black people here. So is that anti-black that you're trying to force me to watch something that don't got no black people when you out here talking about
He's basically telling me, he's basically like telling me, turn around and just leave this room.
Walk off. Walk off.
And you know what he was watching? He was watching what's that show? I can't remember the name of the show. But he I guess the dad is like a football player, and he has three boys. Oh, it's with Tia Marie is the mom. You know the twin girls that were like the small girls.
Oh, okay. Tia and Tamara,
and then one of them is the mom. No,
I didn't know they had a sitcom.
No, they don't have a sitcom. Only one of them is the mom.
No, I mean, like, I didn't know either one of them was in a.
Yeah.
Sam probably knows, but it's not his generation.
Is this a new show?
No.
Oh.
The last I knew of them was Sister.
Yeah, Maury. So Krishna Davenport knows.
Okay.
What is the name of the show? Anyways, so it's their show, and it's an all-black cast in English. No, it's not no Raven. Raven is
no, that's something else.
Let me Google. Let me use the Google that we talk about.
Right? Yeah. But can we just get a hand clap for this Cardi, Barty gang and Meg that's coming out Friday? Because I'm hyped for that.
I hope it's good. I'm afraid to hype until I see it, until I hear it.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
The game? No, I don't think they're not. No, because they're not watching that. The game isn't for kids.
Is it Instant Mom?
No, it's not the game. It's not the game. No, it's not the game. It's not the game.
Is it Instant Mom?
Maybe.
No, because I think she gave birth to the boys.
Oh, okay, then I guess not. Maybe not.
Oh well.
We don't know. But Tia Maui.
Fisher says she's never hyped for Cardi. Look, I love Cardi.
Hold on, but it has nothing to do with the show. Has nothing to do with Cardi B.
No, I'm saying no. In the meantime, while Evelyn was on the Googler, I was saying that Meg and Cardi have a single coming out Friday, and Krishna said that she's never hyped for Cardi. Sorry, y'all. I love her. I love Meg.
Why are we not hyped for Cardi? Because that's a good question.
Yeah. I like people that own their shit, that own who they are, whether you a hood rat, whether you a Stepford wife, whatever. Well, not a Stepford wife.
Yes. What is Stepford?
Yeah, because I was trying to think of another example. But I like people that own their shit, you know, and she's one of those people.
Yeah, I like her messiness, and I think that for a lot of people, it makes. She's the type of person that makes you confront what you believe about Black people, because she's very easy to exclude. I'm talking about Cardi specifically. I think that for people who are like,
it's called Family Reunion.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the other. Tia Mowry and Loretta Devine star in Family Reunion comedy series. Okay. So, but I think that she's one of those people, because on the low, Cardi be making some real important points.
No, she be making points.
She be making some points. She's actually really smart. So, but I think that her delivery is so like casual and regular that people often don't presume that people who speak in that way, like I always think about it, like the old Navy speakers, we don't get no credit. People always want you to be speaking Nordstrom style, right? People always want you to be speaking like high, and I think that that's part of the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we understand that she gets away in some ways,
and she has privilege though. She has privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because let someone darker skin or with, you know, whatever, ... But yeah, she does she's operating within that privilege. I can't with her voice. I can't. I mean,
her voice is annoying a little bit. I can see that. Her voice is annoying.
But I think my voice is annoying, so I'd be like, with her. Of the annoying voices. I think my voice is annoying as hell.
You know what I also am fascinated by? I think that like to date, she has improved in all cylinders, right? Like I think that her rapping game is better. Even if she's not writing it, I think that her flow has improved from like the first mixtape that I heard to like the most recent releases, which I like. I can appreciate her growth as an all-around artist and taking advantage of opportunities. Because I'd be like, yes, girl.
Well, she be speaking up when she needs to speak up. Like, period.
Yeah.
You know everybody else is like, Cardi's like, no, I'm gonna tell you something. And specifically with this Meg shooting and how she's been the butt of everybody's jokes, right? Again,
Megan Thee Stallion
got shot in the leg by a short man, a short black man.
Yeah.
You know, I have a vendetta against short men. Like, I discriminate against short men. I don't care. They have complexes and they tend to take it out on women. It's like, take that up with God. That's not what me.
I know a few. I even reproduced with one. And you know what? Let me tell you something. Nunca más.
But I'm speaking from a place of privilege because all the men in my family are tall. My husband's tall. You know, I get it. But what you gonna do?
You know, Sen was like, why, ma? Why are you and my dad both short? Like, why? Like,
but he's tall.
I mean, taller than both of us. And he's still kind of tight because he's like, I could be taller.
Well, he's still got a few more years on that. So.
You know, for his sake, I'm hoping. I be looking at him every day, like, let's see.
Our boy. Well,
he knows what it is.
Today something interesting happened because Anayansi said to Gibran, one day we're both going to be the same height. And Gibran was like,
no, we won't.
Gibran's like, I'm 2 years older. and then Anayansi's like, Tio Etienne and Mama are the same height, my brother and me. And I'm like, yeah. And then Gibran's like, no. Gibran is pretty short.
I mean, Gibran could be shorter than Anayansi. But what is your thing about short men? What is your
problem with short men?
You don't have a problem. Would you date someone shorter than you?
I've never have.
Would you date someone shorter than you, Dash?
No. Why? When there's men that aren't shorter than me. Why elect poverty?
Oh,
and I'm 5'5". You know, so if you're shorter than me, like we don't like what is no.
I ain't even front. One time I did an online dating thing, right? Well, many times I did an online dating thing. I have no problem with online dating. This is just my truth. And I happened to meet the dude at the bar, right? So he's sitting in the chair. I come up and we had like such a good time. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to walk you home. Life is good. So I was like, okay, that's nice. You know, like I'm trying to, and mind you, I'm generalizing like where I live. So I'm, you know, you can drop me off at the corner. Yeah. Life is good. We had a really good time. I have a little 2 drinks, you know? So remember, he's sitting on the stool when I got there. So I was like, oh, like, this is great. We're doing like a super flirt. Like, you know, it's like, oh shit, we looking at each other in the eye and shit. When it was time to get up, mind you, it was winter. So you know how like you have like, if you live in a colder place, you got like your cute winter look, right? You got like your little tight jeans on, you got like a little pump, a little boot with a little heel, whatever. I also should state that I am 5'1", like with extension. Like if I'm standing up straight, right? I make 5'1". So I'm maybe like 5'3" with my little pump. You know, it was like a weeknight. I was looking like, you know, kind of like half after work. Right. So I get up, you know, so it would just happen that the stools were like one of those rolly things. So it was like, you know, I rolled one direction, he rolled the other direction. So I rolled to jump off the stool. And when I looked over, I couldn't see old boy. And I was like, what the fuck? Like if this is my eye, you know, my range of vision, like I couldn't see him. So I'm like, how the hell did he disappear? All of a sudden, he's like, oh, you ready? Thank you. He's like, oh, you ready? Bitch, I looked down.
No, I am not.
I had to look down. And so I was like, he
was a little person?
Not quite little, but definitely not big, right? So he was like, yeah, you ready to go?
Wait, okay. So now that you're telling the story, Ev, am I being ableist?
Yes. So there's a real privilege around that.
Wait a minute. And if you're listening, tell us, would you date someone who is shorter than you, and what do you think about like if shorter people shorter than you?
No, pull my coattails, and that's why I asked. Pull my
coattails. there is a real so Omar and I were having this conversation just the other day, because I know I benefit from a lot of privileges that I didn't earn, right? And one of them, right, is that I'm a heterosexual woman. That's my sexual preference. But I'm also married to a good-looking man.
And get him on mine.
And I didn't earn something that it's just that I married a good-looking man, and he's taller than me. I didn't earn that. But there's a privilege around marrying somebody or being with somebody that's taller than you. On top of that, my firstborn is a boy. My secondborn is a girl. And there's a real privilege around that.
Yeah.
And it's an unspoken privilege, but it's there. And when we walk in, we look like this perfect family. Taller man, shorter woman, firstborn boy, secondborn girl. If Omar were shorter than me, the family dynamic would not be privileged no more. And how we are treated when we enter spaces would be gone. And we were talking specifically around just that height difference would shift how things would be, how would we perceive and treated. Like we wouldn't be, offered things when we walk into places, or like,
because you fit that image of the nuclear family,
the perfect, not just nuclear.
Yeah.
Like everybody is always like telling us that we're the perfect family and everything, And
there's an attractiveness that you get, like a basic attractiveness. Whereas, for example, because I'm short, when I had a short partner, it was like, oh, y'all are cute. We never moved past cute, right? So that was also something that was really frustrating, right? It was like it was like a Ita.
Yeah.
Thing. Like it was like a very infantilizing type of assessment of our relationship that was also really frustrating.
It's true.
No, when we go to parties, the term for us is like, oh my God, such a beautiful family. Constantly. That's always the descriptor for our family. Such a beautiful family. Omar and I are like, because we do this work, we're so in tune to those like descriptors.
Yeah.
Right. And the positioning, especially during Christmas, that they put us in. And where they position Gibran, they always position Gibran in front of me, and I am in front of Omar. Like there's this very right, but it's also like the very I don't know. There's this thing that we get, and we know it's the height. It's
If the whole look.
If he were a little bit shorter than me, it would disrupt that privilege.
There is a power dynamic that plays out, and so you really think about the infinite amount of ways that who you choose as a partner is such an act of politics, right? Like everything is political, and so recognizing that also is very true for who you love, right, and who you choose to partner with.
But that's why I said that that I'm speaking from a place of privilege, in that all of the men in my family are tall. My husband's tall. But as Evelyn was talking and I saw Genevieve's face of like her look of terror, I'm like, I'm being ableist right now. I'm being raggedy. So let's talk about it. Because I'm always like, look, how many times I've told you, I'm like, pull my coattails. If I'm living wrong, pull me by my Kanekalon bun. Pull me by my wig. Like, do it. I'm living wrong and oppressing people when I don't.
Oh, that sandwich is so good.
Right? Wait, what is that? Turkey? I knew it was turkey.
It looks good.
It's good.
With oil and vinegar, salt, pepper, oil and vinegar.
From the bodega downstairs.
That's how I view the documentary.
Is anyone talking? Because I can't see, but is anyone mentioning like would they date someone?
Hi, Maria. Luz. Hey. Tanya Romero, who always be supporting.
Shout out to you, Tanya.
I love and appreciate how you mujeres keep it real. So true, Janvia. Michelle Pascal. Pascal, I love that name. And one of like my most treasured friends, her name is Pascal. And Pascal, she said that her brother named her. And it was because of the story, Pascal. It was like the teddy bear or something. And so her name is Pascal because her brother wanted to name. I think that story is so sweet. Anyway, Krishna said we're all raggedy sometimes. Yeah, we're raggedy. I'll be raggedy.
So a mentor of mine, his daughter's boyfriend got shot, right? His daughter's boyfriend, this was years ago. His daughter's boyfriend got shot, and he was in a wheelchair. And then their relationship ended maybe like a year and a half after. And he said to me, yeah, I didn't think it was going to last after he ended up in the wheelchair. Right? I was like, that's kind of effed up. And he said, yeah, it is effed up. But I didn't see it. I didn't see that I was going to move past that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like the parents didn't see that they could move past that.
Correct. Her father. And then he said, well, think about it. Would you be able to take care of somebody past the obligation that you felt you had being of your partner being in a wheelchair? And that's when it really hit me, like, wow, there's love and then there's obligation. Those are two different things.
Wow, that's hard, right? Like, that's a difficult thing. Like, I know someone whose parents got mad because they got with somebody that had, like, I think diabetes.
Yeah.
And they really were like, don't be with this person, right? And that's something to consider, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so is it that it would happen, let's say, before were they married or like?
No.
Okay.
They were dating.
Because I think that also makes a difference, right? If something happens and you're like, in this committed relationship of some sort, then not to say that unmarried people are not in committed relationships, but like the legally bound, I guess, relationships, like that's
no, there's a different. There's exactly that. There's love, and then there's a responsibility in the commitment. Those are two different things. And then I have another good friend, and she's an elder, and she's an elder that she's 65 now. So when she was when she was around 50, she started dating this man. He told her that he was diagnosed with very early onset Alzheimer's, but he was not showing any signs of it. She said, well, we'll go through this together, because they have been dating for a minute, but there was no signs. They get married like 4 years later, no signs. Maybe like 2 years after they got married, signs.
Yeah.
So fast forward, it's advanced. And it's like, if I would have known, if I would have trusted what he had told me, I wouldn't have done it. But now I have this commitment, and I'm going to live through the commitment because I made a commitment, and he communicated very early. And I made that commitment, and I love this man, and I honor him. And then I always wonder, like, is that something I could do? Because I'm very immature that way, right? I don't consider myself a very mature person when it comes to those decisions yet. I know I would do it now because I have 2 children with my partner. So it's a completely different ballgame for me right now as I speak at 10:54 at night.
And it's real. It's real. You know what? You all know that my mom has Alzheimer's, right?
Yes.
And And one of the things that I think about a lot is what type of relationship deposits one needs to make in order to have this, right? Because the shit is fucking hard. Like, there are days when I have literally sat on the floor and questioned what I did in life to deserve this.
Mm.
Like, it's like, I have questioned whether the relationship that I have with my mom was good enough for us to have to deal with this type of, you know what I mean? Because there's like, people sometimes are like, I love my mother. Like, we get along. We are besties. We are, you know? And I don't know that I had that relationship with my mom. We never got there.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, there was also such a big gap in age between me and my siblings that, like, they got there with her, right? They were able to really have a specific type of relationship with her, where when you reach a certain part of your adulthood, you and your mom, if you get along, you are like riding, right? You're all homies. By the time that I got to that age, my mom was already ill. And so it's like the entirety of my adulthood where I was looking forward to having a specific type of relationship with her has been with her, her dementia progressively getting worse, and like not knowing who I am, not knowing who my children are, right? Not knowing who my son is. That's been such a hard thing. And I like, again, it's like the type of thing where what you think and what you believe are different things, because what I think is that people deserve to, like, I have been in really transformative romantic relationships that I would be like, this year was magical, right? Like, it's helpful, you know, it's better for me than 3 years that I spent in some other shitty ass relationships. But the amount of work, particularly when it gets really bad, it's just so soul depleting. And I want to leave room and hold space for people who have that experience, and then also recognize that it's human nature to want to be loved, right? And to want to have a specific type of engagement with someone, to have an attachment, right? And I think that sometimes people are willing to take those risks for the gain of the attachment. And the challenge is that we often don't know how long that attachment is going to be in its best shape for, right? So that's such a hurting thing, and particularly to be in that stage of your life where you're thinking that, you know, presumably your role as a caregiver is different, right? There's a part of your life where when you're like maybe, you know, 50, where I would imagine that you're looking forward to having some level of like independence, so that you can do things and travel and, you know, and retire happily and do stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like you're just kind of starting over without the benefits of being in love and older, really having access to all of those benefits. And that can be really hard. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about that a lot when that lady, when B. Smith was alive, right? And how her husband had like this other relationship, presumably, or, you know, supposedly, and that was difficult. And Swahili says here, I get you, Evelyn, it's very hard. My grandmother had it too. She lost her memory, was not able to recognize no one in the family. She used to call us her childhood friend's name who had passed away. Yeah. And so yep, I'm here with you, Swahili. And so you just saw me like walk her to the bathroom, right, a little while ago. It's like sometimes I'm like, yo, like, you know how they say, you know, once, like twice a child, right? And so this is very much our reality, my sister and myself, and that's been hard. It's really hard to also see the decline. Like, there's something, and again, so when we're thinking about the fact that we have all of these social situations that are happening, right? We're looking at fucking all the shit, plus being a Black woman. And on top of that, caregiving in a way that our community is also expected to do, and it almost always falls toward girl children, right? Then that is just one more layer of challenge, because you're always thinking, you always got to play, like, we always have to play chess when other people get to play checkers.
Yep. I feel that so hard, Ev, like specifically with my husband being in Cuba, and this whole immigration process has been a nightmare. Well, a series of nightmares. And we're going on 6 years in January, and we still haven't been able to live together outside of Cuba. And I completely feel you, like, in terms of you know, I don't want to say this, but, you know, we keep it real here, right?
Yep.
At times you're just like, why do I have this burden, right? Like, in some ways it's like I elected this burden, or this burden was assigned to me. In my case, sometimes it's challenging at times, because it's like, damn, like, why couldn't I just have, you know, been with a man with better citizenship, right? And that's where, you know, my privilege comes in. Like, well, I mean, lots of us don't have control over that, right? Mm-hmm. But I do want to acknowledge that you, Genevieve, my family, my friends I don't know what I would do without y'all, because it's been terrible, you know? And so I really appreciate y'all, and specifically for people who understand what that means, because not everyone understands what immigration is. Not everyone understands dementia, Alzheimer's. Not everyone understands a child with autism, or, you know, ... fill in the blank. And so community is so important, or we would disintegrate.
Yeah.
You know?
We would absolutely, like, being in the community with people who get you, who understand you, who are willing to listen and offer, like, real advice, right? Or none at all when needed. That is a critical space. And I think that, and also just a place where we can be vulnerable, right? And be raggedy, like, just be like, there's some bullshit right here. Like, I don't know, am I being raggedy when? But, like, really accepting all of who you are, your entirety, right? Because Black women we are so often robbed of our humanity in that way. Like, I feel, you know, I always joke that growing up and in so many parts of my life, I felt like I've only been able to access two feelings, which are gratitude and happiness. And if anything else comes up for me, it's like, it's such a hard thing. Like, I can't be at work being questioned, because then all these other things that you don't want to happen are assigned to your character, and you miss out on opportunities. Like, you know, in romantic relationships, there's like a space where you don't often feel like you can bring in your full self. And so having valuable relationships with women has always been a centering and a foundation point for me, where I've always felt honored and seen and connected and loved in ways.
Didn't I say that? Didn't I say that in the chat, that my greatest romances have been with my girlfriends? Yep. And shout out to Jana. Jana just joined. She's another person that has been supporting and being there. And, you know, we chat all the time. Her husband is Cuban, and so she understands that struggle. So
I should also say, Luz Maria Bembo said that dementia and Alzheimer's is difficult, especially if you as a child didn't already have a good relationship with a parent.
Listen, girl.
And then add that you are the only daughter.
Ooh.
The only Black child.
Oh, no.
And the only one that this parent doesn't believe. And in her dementia, her mom still as racist as she always was, and can never have closure.
You know what? One of the more challenging things, and one of the things that I have had to accept about dementia, which was really hard, was that it doesn't change you. It highlights all the elements of who you are, right? And in some ways, some of the spaces that, like, my mom had a lot of anti-Black thoughts. And so me being where I stand now and having to really listen and recognize that, like, because she has dementia, I ain't gonna change you, sis. Right? I just have to figure out ways to be less mad at the things that would have made me mad anyway. Right? And I remember that years ago, one of the first things I did when I realized, like, okay, this shit is not really, a couple pills ain't gonna help it. I read a book called Creating Moments of Joy. And the idea was to think about how to create moments of joy. And I really did some work to be able to train myself on how to create moments of joy, because otherwise you're always trying to right, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to right the ship when the ship ain't right. Like, it's like, you know, when you drive, and so often, like, if you spin out, the the kind of like the nature of things is that people want to grab the wheel and actually force it the opposite way to kind of rectify the car, when in reality what you have to do is to actually like just lean into the spin, right? For the most part, depending on where you are, but you want to lean into the spin, the car will rectify itself and then you will go. And so I think about all the times that I initially tried to like grab the steering wheel and force it, and that wasn't helpful. So this particular book was really helpful for me to be able to think about how to create moments of joy. And what that does for you is that it doesn't just help you create moments of joy with the person that has dementia, but also for yourself, because all the other moments that you're able to give yourself joy allow you to show up differently for the person that has dementia. Like one of the things I think that, we talked earlier about elders, and one of the reasons why I have really started to have that conversation is because I have so many regrets about the conversations that I did not have with my mom about like my own background, right? There are pieces of me that only she knows. Mm-hmm. And we never got to the point where we could have those conversations. I want to know why you chose my dad. That's not a question that I know, right? I just want to know why. Like, what was it about him that made him, like, how did you feel when you realized that he wasn't the person that you thought he was going to be? Like I would have liked to have those types of conversations with her. Because there's so many pieces of myself that I feel like a puzzle with like a lot of missing pieces. And the person who has access to those pieces no longer knows who I am. So there's a part of you that can feel very lost in the sauce. And what it does is that it also forces you to now have like that connection. So I find myself telling my son all my business now, because I'm like, who the fuck knows? And meanwhile, he's 15. So he's like, please chill, like just stop.
TMI.
And so at this point, it's like, as a result, like, how do you pace yourself to not also in the process almost rob your children of their process and magic in a timely fashion? Because now I just want to purge, because I feel in some ways so lost as my parents' daughter. And it's difficult because they're alive and I feel lost. Like, I think I have feelings that often my friends whose parents have passed have. And so it's like there's a grief that is happening while I can look at my mom in the next row. And that's, so I think about that so heavily, and I'm always like, just appreciate your parents, right? If you have a good relationship with them, recognizing that not everybody does. And I definitely believe in self-care in the way that if the shit ain't working, find your squad. And if it is, love your squad.
Yeah, totally.
What you just shared, Evelyn, really struck a chord with me, because I something that I work with a lot is grief, but not from that sense. Mm-hmm. I work a lot around grief, around not ever being asked to migrate. And not ever being given a choice to migrate, because I don't think I would have. And it's something that I think about all the time.
What do you mean?
Well, my parents migrated when I was 15. I wasn't given a choice. I wasn't asked if I wanted to or not.
And also thinking about the things that we do or we've experienced from our parents at young ages, and how those can go unhealed, right? And it's such a fascinating thing how in relationships, like, we're thinking that we're doing something for the best interest, and we don't often think about the long-term effects that has, and like the tears and cracks that those actions create in the foundation of our relationship, and how sometimes those foundations, that shit is cracked. Like, it's broken, bro. 30 years later, I'm still fucking mad at the time that you said X, Y, Z. And so when we don't arm ourselves with the tools to be able to say, like, you hurt me, or to confront it, then we often are also just continue to be like,
absolutely,
like, we continue to be broken. And then we sometimes can harm other people as a result, because this is also how we've learned how to be. And just recognizing that, again, it's like, I keep going to the fact that I've not been able to have these types of conversations with anybody else besides other Black women, right? Like,
correct.
Right. These are the spaces that I feel safest.
So yeah. So
what y'all thinking in the chat? Because y'all, some people are listening, right? So what are y'all thinking right now? Type in.
So for me, part of my constant healing process and therapy and oh, sweet girl. And my daughter just brought me at the right time. Oh, yeah. But the right moment.
What is it?
Ginger tea.
Ooh, that sounds good right about now.
Thanks, Nancy.
Now you made me mad. I'm about to eat the other half of my sandwich.
Right, and I just have a jug of water because I'm on keto.
Oh, word? You doing it?
Yeah. My mom asked me. So speaking about moms.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so part of my constant thing is this the concept of and this is something that actually sparked the book, my never-ending book that I've been writing for years. Is this concept of ambiguous loss, right? Of losing something that you're not of closing something that you're not clear what it is and grieving that. Because I'm not even sure what it is that I'm actually grieving because there hasn't been any closure around it. And this idea of what I'm grieving, I'm not even clear what it is, but it's something that I fully lost because I wasn't included in this process of losing it.
And depending on who you are, I think, and how you process, it's less about what you lost and like how you lost it, right? It's not being in choice. The idea of not being in choice feels so harmful, right? Like my son is very much like that. Like he will just be like, I don't care, but you didn't ask me.
Exactly.
I probably would have agreed with you if you asked me, but the fact that you didn't ask me, you robbed me of my choice.
The thing is, I would have stayed.
Right.
I know I would have stayed with my grandmother.
Mm.
I know I would have stayed with my grandmother. Like if my parents would have asked me, do you want to stay and then be reunited with us? I would have said I would have stayed with my grandmother. But I was never given that choice. And then part of it is like all these opportunities and who I am today and all those things. Like and then I think about my children, there are all these things, right? But it's this like this, there's this grieving something that I don't even know if it exists. Right. And then part of it is also like, yeah. And it's comparable to the relationships that I've made up in my mind that also don't exist. These deep relationships with my cousins that only exist when I go back home. They're not the day-to-day experiences that I have with them. My relationships with them are over WhatsApp. They're transactional over WhatsApp. Yeah, there's some emotional connections that we have, absolutely. But they're not like the ones that they have face-to-face, where they're seeing each other and taking care of each other's kids and da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm the auntie that comes in and we go out to the beach and the beach house and the this and the that, and then the airport, I'm gone.
Yeah. Ciao,
pescado.
Ciao.
When my kids come in, everything is centered around my kids when they come in. All the family outings are so much fun. It's like a concentrated fun for the whole kids, the cousin troops to be together. And that's the relationship that my kids want with their cousins. But that's not the real relationships that their cousins have with each other. So anyways,
it's true. There's a romanticization that happens too, I think, in immigration that we often don't think about.
Yeah.
And that's where it stays, right? You're like the good time friend. Oh, yeah. We get to do all this stuff too, right? But you also miss out from the day-to-day interactions that are mundane.
Yeah. And arguing, the hard times, the this.
Right.
No, because those are the you know, like when I found out, you know, my cousin is a belly dancer in Panama, right? And when I found out that my aunts, including my mother, all got together and my cousins to make her costumes, I was so jealous because I can imagine how much fun that was. And I'm not a sewer, but I crack jokes and I
wanted to be part.
That's a contribution. That's an important
alcohol. I'm the drink mixer of the family.
That's important.
Right? I'm the drink mixer of the family. I'll be cracking jokes, like I'll be making my aunts laugh.
That's how I felt for my grandma's 80th birthday. She just turned 80 earlier in June. And my entire family lives in Colon. I live in Panama City. It's only 40 minutes. And I think you saw a couple pics of, she had her violet suit on. They set it up with the balloons. And I was talking to my husband and I burst into tears. I'm like, I'm watching these videos and I'm so jealous because I'm her favorite. And I couldn't be there because I'm not taking the risk on going on these dirty ass buses in Panama, number one, and then carrying it to my 80-year-old grandma. You know, I'm just not doing that. And so and she wanted me there, obviously, but I'm like, it's too risky. And I couldn't go in good faith, right? Because it is a whole process to get on the bus and go to Colon. And, you know, I'm watching the videos and I'm like, I can't be there, right? And I'm right here. You know, it's a low drive, right? But I don't have a car. And we're still under lockdown in Panama anyway. And I was extremely jealous. And that whole migration with the cousins coming to visit, that was me. I was the cousin that came every summer. But I think the crux of the pain that maybe my mom has was that she migrated from Panama pregnant with me. She was 19 when she had me, and she gave me to my grandma. And so I lived the first 3 years of my life in Panama. And she said, we had a conversation about it a few years ago. And she was crying and she was like, I feel she never forgave herself because she was like, everybody was telling me to give you to abuelita because she was so young. She was in this country by herself, in the US by herself. I mean, she had, you know, some relatives, but it's not the same. And everyone said, give your daughter to your mother to raise for a couple years, you know, and then bring her back to the States. And she was like, if I had to do it, she was like, if there was one person that said to stay with you, I would have stayed with you because I really wanted to. But she was 19. All the elders and everybody who, you know, she respected and looked up to were telling her to give me to my grandma. And she was like, if I had to do it again, I would have stayed with you. You know, she's like, you always stay with your baby. You always, you know, she said it like 2-3 times. And I think those formative years, because I left when I think she said 5 months. You know, I was still on the teta, right? And she's like, I would have stayed with you, but everybody was pushing me to give you to your grandma. And, you know, I came back when she was a little bit more established in the US, but I don't think she's ever forgiven herself for that. Because
sorry.
Just the last thing, like we had a up and down relationship. Her relationship with my brother and sister is a bit more, I don't want to say smoother, but it's less dramatic, I guess. And I really do think it's because of those, you know, the early years where we were separated.
I think that that's one thing that I was actually thinking about recently, doing is starting some sort of group or support for parents who sent their children home. Because I think that there is a source of like pain in immigration, right? Like again, with only being able to tap into these two emotions, right? You should be grateful you're in the US. You should be grateful you're in England. You should be grateful to any of the big spaces that people migrate from. But like, that shit is harmful and it's hurtful and it's hard to, and I mean, and imagine now now that you can see your children. But imagine when you were growing up, right? There wasn't no Zoom, there wasn't no WhatsApp videos, so you went tons of time without actually physically even laying eyes on your children. And that can also be, that was so hard for moms too. But like thinking about maybe, Afro Resistance can start something, we'll fundraise for it, right? But really starting an international fund for moms who are away from their children.
Well, that's one of the, we get a lot of requests because the immigrant rights movement in the United States is racist, number one. And that's one of the biggest requests that we get. The biggest requests that we get are from domestic workers and from women that work in the hotel industry. Most of them that are from Latin America and the Caribbean that are Black, and that are, and we're coming up with a paper in the next few months, weeks, and it's a real short thing that explains how structural adjustment programs work, because when there's an economic crisis here, the folks start hiring Black women, basically to do domestic work more and more and more and more. And that could mean from cleaning houses to taking care of the children to doing all the labor. And it's mostly Black women that do that work, mostly undocumented women, mostly immigrant women. Those women have no Social Security. Most of those women have children that, not only children, but they have children, small children, that they're paying their sisters or their mothers or their grandmothers to take care of them. But it's not called paying, it's called remittances to sustain a household. So it's not a salary that their sisters are getting or their mothers are getting, it's a contribution to that household. And it usually looks around $30 or $40 a week for a house of maybe like 5 or 6 people back home, right? So 5 or 6 people back home. Did you hear that amount? 5 or 6 people back home. That woman is usually a woman taking care of all those people, is also a domestic worker to another family. It could mean planchando, ironing clothes, or it could mean washing clothes or cooking or taking care of gardens or doing different things and lugging 2 or 3 children, sometimes her own children plus the woman that's cleaning somebody's house over here. There's no assistance to those women over here when they're laid off. And what that looks like being laid off, it means that they don't get paid. They only get paid when the lazy ass white woman or white Latina, right? Or white from whatever country, after she plays with making sourdough bread, which is like a hobby nowadays, sourdough bread and lasagna. What other dishes are people making these days? They're making a whole lot of experimental dishes that are like, I hear people are making cheese and cashew cheese and a whole bunch of different shit that is happening. So after they start playing with all those things in their kitchens and making a hot mess, they call these women to clean their kitchens. Oh, and also to do nails. I've heard that that's also a thing. And hair, because they don't want to go to salons for COVID, but they call people to do everything because
and then infect them with COVID.
And then infect them with COVID. And then they get paid cash, and then that cash directly goes into remittances to get sent back home. So that's one of the requests that Afro Resistance has been getting. So when we say a fund for Black girls and women, that's one of the big categories, right? One of the requests, that's one. Another request that we've gotten is private health insurance in Latin America. Because yes, while there's universal health insurance that happens, it's very limited and it's substandard. So a private health insurance could be like $40 a month for a family of 3 or 4, which is pretty affordable, right? But it still has to be paid. And people have no money and they have senior citizens in their household. Why not? So yes, the fund is not new. We're not creating a new fund for this. This is what part of the fund is actually going to be used for. So donate
for the Black.
I put the link in the chat already. You know I'm about that.
Yeah.
The
support group here, I think, is completely necessary. The emotional.
Yeah, right. A work group in the US. And I just want to highlight Maria Bembo's comments about shouting out Dash for sharing the story with her mom and recognizing and also being brave, right? To have this conversation, to ask her these questions, because that's part of your story, right? That's part of your history. You deserve to know that. And also your mom was brave too, right? Because I think that there also was a generation of women who would have been like, no me pregunte eso. That we don't talk about that anymore. Like, it's over.
That my mom was the one who stopped that because my grandma was like that and she didn't like it. So then she was like, I'm not doing this. And so she was the first, like I said, my mom was my first hero. And I told her that the other day and she put the emoji, like the thinking emoji, like I was tricking her. I'm like, just take the compliment.
First of all, I just want y'all to know out there that Dash's mom is fucking fly. Like, she is a baddie. In fact, you might have to show us a picture of her on the thing. Show us, because her mom is
her WhatsApp picture. Her WhatsApp picture.
Yes, she'd be slaying on a regular.
I sent her a text and she didn't respond. And I see she updated her WhatsApp photo and I'm like, where the hell are you? I don't know if you wait.
Yeah, look, what?
Wait, where's
right there. Oh,
that's a hottie.
Bish?
Yeah.
Why is that looking like Dash? Plus 2 years old. Plus 2 years.
2 years old.
You know what?
People have asked like who's older. I'm like, excuse me, sir.
That's just ignorant. Be like, this is my mama. You asking her, really?
No, at my wedding, like my guy friends were like, that's your mom? I'm like, excuse me.
At your wedding, I was like, this your mom? I was like, wait.
No, but I told you that joke that my husband, when she came to Cuba the first time when we got legally married, he's like, it's a shame I didn't meet your mom first. I'm like, you want to die on your wedding night? That's what you elected to do?
Your mom is fly though. And she's also like, how tall is she? She's like 5'9" at least.
She's tall, yeah. She's tall. That they used to call my parents the tall people.
Yeah. See, like what Nadia was talking about, that there's like a statuesque, a certain power that is assigned to that. Yeah. Meanwhile, my short ass would be like, oh, you're so cute. Y'all
no, but I got bullied in my family because my dad, my mom, my brother, and my sister are tall. You met my brother, and my sister's tall. I'm 5'5". I'm the shortest, and like, you know, I don't have a complex about it because, you know, whatever. But I was the shortest in my family.
Well, you know what? I got a complex, but I'll be like, I'll fight anybody. Like, I'll be like, oh, what? You trying to say something because I'm short?
Well, you lit. What did the students call you? You short and lit?
Yeah, I'm short and lit.
Well, speaking of students, which I you know, if we want to wrap up soon, we've been at this for 2.5 hours. Like
2.5 hours. I just looked at it. I was like, so you all look at my new glasses.
I saw that. You looking fly. I love them. I love the red, but this looks so good.
Yeah, it like brings.
Yes. Sure. You know how like black women be giving unique compliments? Yes, glasses. We don't even gotta say it looks good, but it's just like, you cute, girl.
Yeah.
So, Dash, do you have your prescription? Because I can order you some glasses and ship them over there.
Oh, you can?
Yeah. iBuyDirect.com. $9.99 frames.
They having a sale. Dude just bought 2 pairs. Buy one, get one.
Oh. And they don't check with your eye doctor because sometimes they like call them.
Your prescription is expired? Is your prescription expired?
I believe so. Yeah, I haven't had one in a year.
It's like it depends on how much time.
In a year?
Huh?
Your prescription still work?
Yeah.
So then use it. For $9.99, you can't go wrong because your glasses are really busted right now.
Yeah.
So I suggest that go into iBuyDirect.
Okay, I will.
Get some glasses.
So go ahead.
The red ones that I got, they're also from iBuyDirect.
All right, I'll do it because I'm struggling. I have one contact and I found an old contact.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I have a box of contacts for you. You want me to give them to Genevieve so she can put the glasses?
Yeah. We'll work it out.
But hold on.
you all can swap contacts like that? What, they adjust
they got mailed to Evelyn's house.
Oh, I was like, what, they melt them?
No, you've used like my contacts before, like yeah. Well, not the same ones that I used in my eyes, like like a new box. We don't do that shit. But remember the teen girl that got incarcerated for not doing her homework?
Yeah, she's released, right?
Going home. Grace is going home. And Grace, the Michigan teen who was detained for not doing her online coursework, is to be released from detention immediately, according to...
I feel like clapping. I'm disgusted.
Yeah, me too. Garland Gilchrist said, "This is a victory for Grace and her family. However, a glimmer of justice amidst a broader injustice does not right the underlying wrong. This case is why we must continue to reform the justice system and address racial prejudice that damages life." We can't reform that. How are you reforming that? It needs to be burned to the ground.
I'm so mad that this is even like a cause for like celebration when it shouldn't even happen in the first place. Like, this is some bullshit. I'm grateful that she's out of that system, and I'm still mad that the system even fucking exists.
Well, not even, right? Because we don't know the conditions, right? Because they have, like, the judge could say this or say that, and the thing is that, like I always say, the system hoards resources, limits access, restricts access, and then punishes us for not being able to access it.
Yep. And then people get punished by people, right? So then we punish people and not the systems that created those people. So if in a year from now, this girl exhibits other things that really are a direct cause of being incarcerated for no fucking reason, then she as an individual is still blamed when the root cause is the system that created these raggedy ass rules. And that's something that we always have to be cognizant of too, right? Because when we're growing in this learning, right, in this white supremacist system, that one of the things that it does is that you have to do so much emotional work to be able to unpack the learned elements, right? That you always got to be like, wait, what? Like, it's like, imagine now we have to ask questions that I think even 10 years ago, we never asked. Yeah. We take shit for granted and be like, it was there. Now it's like, wait, something about this don't sound right. Yeah. That doesn't even make sense, you know? And then the fact that things are the information is constantly thrown at you. It's even that, right? Not knowing is violence. Knowing is violence.
Mm-hmm. Continuous traumatization and re-traumatization. My friend Pascal, who I mentioned earlier, she's like, we're always undergoing trauma, and if it's not addressed, you know, where do we end up? And we end up always completely in the system that criminalizes the trauma that they gave us in the first place.
It's all money. Trauma means money for folks. Black women's trauma, Black people's trauma is all money. It's all profit.
But not fixing the trauma in ways that are really like healing. It's more of we constantly putting Band-Aid on flesh wounds, and those Band-Aids are expensive, right? Mm-hmm. That's part of it. That trauma is a flesh wound, and they keep putting Band-Aids on it, and it's just like, what you smelling? I'm like,
my do-rag.
Oh, I was like, girl.
Okay, you know, sometimes it smells funky. It's at that point where it's funky, like my mask. Today I went for a jog, and my mask was...
You jogged in a mask?
Well, I wear it down here because sometimes I'm like beside people and I have to pull it up. And then one of those pull up, I was like, ooh.
Yeekus.
Yeekus is right. No, you know what's real yeekus? Anayansi's mask.
Don't be ratting out my road dog on
no,
this.
Because she should be licking it.
Oh. But you know what? I think this is really important because shout out to the parents who don't really have a choice but to send their kids back to school in the fall, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that there's a lot of talk about what people are going to do, and there's some people who have less of a choice than others. And I just want to highlight those people that, you know, that for whatever reason they have to send their children to school, and recognizing how difficult it's going to be to keep, especially small kids, away from each other, wearing the masks, Shout out to the teachers that are going to be doing that work if they opt to go back to work, because these are the examples that I think we need to be reminded of how difficult it is this era for like smaller children. She's only 7. She's gonna play with the mask. She's gonna sneeze in the mask. They're gonna do all these types of like, gross things and yeet things in the mask. That's just what it is.
That's she has perfectly shaped her mask to her nose and mouth.
Impressive.
It's like saran wrap.
Yes, but that is all through licking.
Oh, ooh. Ooh.
And it feels like paper mache. And it smells like.
I think we've got it.
Yeah, enough.
I think we've got it. I think we're good here.
And then I don't know what's going on between Nancy and Dash and Evelyn, but now Evelyn has been highlighted to like the goddess.
Yeah, she forgot about my pajama wearing ass.
Evelyn gave her this like soft like satin mask, which is her favorite because it's the softest one that exists in the world. And it's the most licked one too. And I had
I took it. I was like,
I had to like Omar and I had to tell her like, you can't wear this right now. It has to be washed. It's brown, Anayansi. It's brown. And she's like, this is the one that Evelyn gave me. And she thinks that your mother gave it to you, but I keep on telling her mother-in-law. And she's like, her mother gave it to her special. So
after she demanded why Evelyn's fiance lives with her.
Is he still living with her?
Is that man still in Evelyn's house? Yes, that's her.
It called Evelyn's house too.
Well, like I called Donnie Alvarez.
That's his name. Shit, the fuck. I already asked him. I was like, if this ever happens, would you take my name? I like my name. And he was like, nah, we could become the Alvarez Johnsons. But I will not. So we agreed that everybody's gonna keep their fucking name.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm keeping my name. I honestly add Machado to humor my husband because he likes to see it. But I'm not legally changing my name to that.
Oh, that was
all paperwork for immigration.
Yeah, Omar and we were both married before, so that wasn't even a conversation.
No,
huh?
That you didn't talk about it?
It wasn't even a topic of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't care about it. I didn't care about it. And also, like father relationships. Like I have a very strong relationship with my father.
Yeah.
Him, not so much. So,
what about like the kids? Like, if you had kids, would you make them Machado, or your kids have Omar's name?
My kids have Freya Williams, and we're very both of us are very strict with everybody writing their name Freya Williams.
Entirely, like the entire name. So no shortcuts.
No.
And you know what? I knew that of you. You didn't tell me that, but I knew that of you. And so when I sent Yancy her book, I made sure to put her name right.
We're very clear. So in every single document, it's very clear. And I'm always Williams Comrie. It's always very, very clear. And people, sexism is sexism. Omar has been called Mr. Williams a lot.
As you should be.
And he doesn't feel any kind of way.
Yeah, why should you?
But you know what? I really honestly, and this is another maybe we can finish this conversation some other time. And people that are listening or in the chat, tell us if your children have your name or how you've decided that, because that's a really important thing. If I could do it again, I would have at minimum hyphenated my son's name and probably only given it mine, because I think that also just the challenges. Like I remember when I had to get his passport, it was like running around after my damn baby daddy was unpleasant. And like I kept thinking to myself, like, wow, there are an infinite amount of decisions that I have to also like at least expect it to include the other person. But I was also thinking about the way that I was raised. And so like out of my my mom's children. My mom has 4 children, 3 with another partner previous, and 1 that is my dad. And so one of my aunts made it her business to like make me feel bad when I was growing up because I had my mom's name. So my last name is my mother's last name, and my siblings had their father's last name, which was considered like, oh wow, like, you know, they were acknowledged children, whereas you are like some little bastard that, you know, like you're just, you know, like your dad didn't even stick around enough to be able to give you his name. And that was a source of embarrassment for me. So growing up, not that anyone ever really cared, but I knew, and it was like she kept on saying it. I heard it enough times where that was a thing for me. So when I had a child, so when I had a child, I was always thinking that it was going to mean something powerful to have my child have their dad's last name, right? And so I automatically was like, of course, like I would not want him to feel, you know, whatever. And I honestly, I regret it. Like, not, I mean, you know, it's a cool name, whatever. But I do think that for the purposes of being able to just maneuver in the world, as a woman, I certainly would be like, give your babies your name.
Yeah, I'm gonna give our kids both our surnames. Yeah. And my surname, I use my mother's surname like throughout my entire life, even though like my legal name was my father's last name, Rodriguez. But I never used that name because he wasn't in my life. Like my legal name was not what I was using. I don't know how the passport people let me get away. Like I'm like, all these people let me get away with using my non-legal name. But when I got married, I had to completely change legally to Harris. And so like I was like 2-3 different people. And so that paperwork and all this, I'm Dash Harris. That's it. That's what it's gonna be. That's it.
Yeah.
And I, just like Genevieve, I do have an attachment to Harris because before my grandfather died, I was his favorite as well because by proxy, because my mom was his favorite. He was like, "You're a Harris." You know, we had this tender moment before he passed. And, you know, I just have no desire to not be Harris. And plus Dash Harris just sounds like more like popping, like be here. What happened to that?
I'm right here. I got, you know what? That's what happens when you got 70 tabs open on your damn computer. This shit just like breaks.
All right.
Yeah.
It is 11:42.
Right? We just been flapping our gums. Thank y'all for rocking with us.
Thank you.
Krishna, kids have his last name. I'm hyphenated. I'm not hyphenating shit. My kids don't have both names.
Now, one thing that I would have considered, and I think I would have been down with this too, is but you have to have a real commitment to this, right? So this is not to be taken lightly. Is for both of us to change our last name.
Yeah, I like that.
A brand new last name. And the whole family have a brand new last name. Because I'm not committed to, you know, I'm committed to Williams because of my dad and Carmen because of my mom, but I'm not committed to my slave owners. You know, so I could be, you know, I'm Freya, you know, whatever. I would be committed to like a liberated name.
X.
You know,
say that.
A liberated name. I don't know what it is.
JVZ. That would be cute. J to the V to the Z. J to the.
On Netflix, it would have to be like a real process to get a new last name. And it could still happen. It will have to be the 4 of us deciding what that last name is. But it could happen.
That would be dope. And if you, I want to talk to, I would love to see the process of how you come up with like one unified name.
Yeah,
that is very valuable and so powerful.
I have a Mexican friend, Arnoldo. His whole family did that. He was on the border in Arizona. His whole last name of their family became Colibri.
I love that word.
Mm-hmm.
It's that word. It just sounds. I love how it sounds.
So his whole family, his partner and his 3 kids, and his kids were already like teenagers when they did it. Became
colibri.
Colibri.
Like, is that a hummingbird? A bird. It's a bird.
It's a bird.
That's beautiful.
So when he told me that, he shared that story with me. We were on some not delegation. We were working together somewhere in Puebla, and he shared that process with me. I was like, oh, I never knew that about him. And it was him and his wife decided to do that. But as I said, there has to be like a real commitment. Like, this is going to be your partner until you die.
Yeah, or not, but we rocking right now. Yeah. But I think that's such a beautiful thing to be able to like retell your story in a way that is meaningful to you in that time of your life, right? Imagine if like different phases of your life would have different names, and they would have the same way that we have different chapters of a book. But like, how dope would it be if I was like, remember when I was Aisha, bitch, right? And
I remember when I was Diddy.
Yes.
When I went on spring break in college, I told everyone my name was Diddy because we picked fake names. And these stupid boys loved it. I'm like, I'm Diddy.
Like, how
calling me that too?
Your Diddy phase. You out here. You know what I mean? Like,
I also have a Dash phase because I became Dash after college. My friends who knew me before I graduated, my name is Dashida, right? But they would call me Dashira. And that's not what my mom named me. My name is Dashida. So when I got into the real world, I'm like, I don't want to hear my name being mispronounced anymore. So I'm Dash. And so that's what it is. And so now the problem is, now that I'm always in Latin America, where people can pronounce Dashida, they can't pronounce Dash.
Or you know what? Or you get where you go, who calls you mommy. And now your phase where it's like mommy, right? Like now you're mommy.
He calls everyone that.
Right?
So, all right.
I tried.
I'm Dutch.
Dutch. C-H-T-C-H. Dutch.
Folks that are still with us.
Thank y'all for joining. Jana, Chris.
We always have a hard time saying bye. So this is
love you all.
Bye. For the folks that are still with us, we are looking for Machete Everything. So post the links on our website, on our Facebook page. Earrings, necklaces, T-shirts, belt buckles. You never know.
Actual machetes.
Actual
machetes. We take those too.
Hair clips, everything.
Cannabis. Jana makes cannabis. Speaking of names I love that name, Jana.
Jenna?
Anything machetes. So, all right. Have a good night, and we'll see you.
Check out our links and follow us.
And send us your questions. rayocañanegra@gmail.com. May 15th is part 2. We'll be adding part 1. Pardon me?
August
15th.
That was like May next year?
Oh, we were vibing. Like,
is that on my calendar? Let me know.
Did I accept that invite?
It's late. It's 11:48.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
I gotta go jump on my Peloton.
That's just like, all I have to do is put this pillow down and go to bed.
Yep, now it's my house dress again.
Wait, connect on bond. Like, when you start being like, you know what?
After our workshops, I always undress.
I'm like,
you're like, yeah. And I wipe my makeup off, and you're like, who are you?
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye, y'all. Love y'all.
Bye, y'all. Thank you so much. Much love. Bye.